So now that it's live, a lot of times some of these discussions before we officially start are just awesome. I do remember, Jason, you talking about, and Steve talking about specific loads being made for specific guns. I thought, oh, that's just cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's man, most people that are in the 41, 44 special world, even 45 Colt world, they're hand loaders, but there's a lot of guys, younger guys especially, that are getting into it that aren't. And what Steve's doing is giving people those those reduced loads that most people hand load themselves at a factory level. And so that's been a godsend for these big bore revolvers is Steve's loads.
Well, even for me, so let's see here. Finding decently priced 44 special that's available. And I got boxes of it in a couple different flavors from High Desert. That's a clue.
Yeah.
That's what we in law
I
enforcement
got a call from Smith & Wesson. When was that? Last November, I think it was. They're looking for 44 special for that. Your Lipsy's gun there, Jason. The Night Guard. That right there at the kickoff dinner thing there they had. Yeah, they're trying to find enough of it to have people test the gun with, and they couldn't find it. So through Brian and other people, they got a hold of me, and I was able to get enough ammo down there to them for the kickoff, the Night Guard. So it was kind of interesting. It was kind of fun because I was able to try a Night Guard with my ammo. It's like win-win. That was good.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that was a good event. They went through a bunch of ammo, and I had a lot of feedback from the writers and stuff that were there about how good that 396 shot, and a lot of that was due to the ammo they were using in it too.
Yeah.
So but really, that 200 grain load was just almost tailor made for that platform. It's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
Good stuff. And as I've said in other episodes, for me, the High Desert stuff, that is my absolute go-to for my revolvers. I buy the bulk in my semi-auto stuff, but for revolver duty or revolver carry and revolver practice, High Desert, it's affordable, it's available, it functions, and
it lets me shoot. It lets me shoot my old troopers. I have a couple of troopers and stuff like that. So like I was always nervous to shoot it with anything you buy off the shelf. And then when I heard the podcast y'all talking about it, I was like, let me give that stuff a try. And then Chuck gave me that stuff, and then I was like, I can shoot this through the trooper. He goes, oh, this is perfect for the trooper. The trooper's gotten a couple workouts in, so I'm really happy to be able to use some of my older Colt stuff.
Heck yeah. Well, all the DB flavored stuff.
Yeah,
it has been so much fun in 357 Blackhawks. And so my buddy John the Fish Cop has a 357 Blackhawk.
Even in this.
Yeah. And we could not load it fast enough because it was just, this is great. This is perfect.
Well, it's gotten a few people hooked on single action. That's my first single action. I bought PSA had the Pietas for like $450 one day, and I was just like, why not stick my toes in? And then I was off to the races. Now it's like, this ain't gonna do it. I got to get something better. So like,
there's no going back.
Expensive.
There's no going back.
No, and I'm already distracted. You got the Night Guard out, and then like what? And then Colt said they're coming out with a blue Anaconda, and that's like so many things.
So,
at one time.
So for people listening or watching, I just need to give you a bit of warning. Don't go to the Lipsy's site and look around for calibers that you might be interested in, because you're going to find stuff. You're going to spend money. Just giving you that warning, because stuff comes up and I go, I wonder what Lipsy's has. Damn it. Okay, I need to order that now.
My kids ain't going to college, that's for sure.
That's right. That's right.
Student loans, man. Student loans.
That's right.
But that's also the same with Steve's ammo. Going through what he has to offer, I could use another box of that. Oh yeah, I definitely need another box of that, and it piles up.
Well, and Steve's smart. He's worked up loads that are actually fun to shoot in these Magnums, so people shoot more of it, so they have to buy more of it. So it's his business model is genius.
Yeah, you guys shoot more of it than I do.
Well, the boxes of 250 are wonderful.
Yeah.
Because that's good for a little bit of time.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
hey guys,
oh, Darryl's here. Hey, everyone.
look who showed up. I heard my name used in vain.
Oh, that was last night too.
Oh God. We're
But-
talking about last night that I did. I was here. I was minding my own business.
You were. I think it was Doug Deaton brought you up. But
Okay.
yeah, wonderful conversation. But today we're talking about 41 and 44 special and Magnum. 44 has been on my mind for a while. 41 made the radar when you guys started talking about these 41 flat tops and this and that. And I remember reading about 41. I thought it was pretty much dead. It sounds like
me too. It keeps coming back. The it's I've got kind of a funny 41 history. Unlike a lot of these guys, I didn't grow up shooting guns like everybody else. I lived in LA. We went to the store for food. I fished and stuff, but my dad had given up hunting by the time I was old enough, and it just wasn't a real part of my growing up. So when I was in college and decided I wanted to be a cop, I'm a pretty hardcore researcher and academic. And I started researching very heavily, and I came to the conclusion that 41 Magnum was by far the best law enforcement caliber there was out there. And so the first revolver I bought was a 4-inch full house Magnaport Model 57 and 41 mag. And I started shooting competition. Roy Huntington, what is this? San Diego cop, phenomenal shooter, took me to my first shooting matches. I was a criminal justice student, so that's how he got me in. And I had a full police rig, and I shot 41 mag, against everybody shooting 38s because there was no 41 special, sadly. It turns out there actually was. It's just nobody used it. Was basically the Model 58 load. And I was hooked. And then I shooting that for a while, I kind of figured out when I started applying at police agencies and doing stuff that no police agencies were really using it. Or certainly none of the ones that I was applying to. So I ended up selling, I was being in college, I could have about 1 or 2 guns at a time. And so that got traded off and went to basically 686s and GP 100s and stuff. And then the agency I got hired at didn't allow any of that either. So, I shot a Model 15 in the academy. They made me use. And then from the day I started, I carried a Smith & Wesson 45 Colt as my duty revolver. But I started with 41 mag, and that really kind of got me hooked on the end frames. Most of my buddies are all kind of K&L frame guys, and I am the hardcore, as anybody who knows me. I am a straight up. I grew up with a trigger finger learning how to turn an end frame cylinder. And but 41, and I had a bunch of them. My car gun for a long time in SoCal was a Model 58. That was an old San Francisco PD gun. And I shot that thing so much, it was spitting as much lead out the side of the gun as was coming out the barrel. But I got to the point I ended up with so many 44 mags that I really couldn't justify having both calibers and got rid of all the 41s. And then I fell into a 3-inch 657 Magnaport gun in 41 mag, and it all came back again. So here we are. I'm back to being a huge 41 mag fan again. So,
when I think of 44 special, I think of you. You're the reason I started looking into that. You're the reason I got a 44 mag mountain gun, because you said, okay, if you're getting into this, look in this direction. And here you are now saying 41.
I still, I've been carrying a 44 special quite a bit lately. I like all the, I kind of like all of God's children. That's why at AFR we are so agnostic. The reality is they're all good for stuff. They're tools. It's just having more in the boxes. I'm to the point now I really look at how guns shoot individually. I do find the 41s tend to be better in the shorter barrel guns. and 44 mag tends to be for me better for when I want to throw big heavy stuff, that and 45 Colt. So I just picked up, I talking about Lipsies, I just picked up a Super Blackhawk again yesterday. The text, my Monday morning text to Jason when I get something to crawl in my head. And, but it's going to be
a regular occurrence.
Yeah, it's a pretty regular gun. I have certain guns now that are pretty much, and it's where Steve has really come into this. I have guns that I now carry for basically specific loads.
Yeah.
So I've got a lot of 357s that are all set up to shoot nothing but Steve's 158 load. Period. I just grabbed a 1 of 100 8-shot Model 27 that I'm pretty addicted to right now. That answers a lot of questions. But in the kind of 200 grain load stuff, 44 special is where I really like the 200 grain stuff. And then you get with 210, in the 41 mag, that range, I think 44 special and 41 mag really reigns supreme right in there. And then with 44 mag and 45 Colt, obviously, I at this point prefer throwing stuff, 240 grains and above is kind of the happy spot on those. So it kind of, and there is, and some of this is, I think that 200, 210 load is a superior load for two-legged predators. And I think the 240s and above are better for four-legged things. I think the other guys have probably more hunting experience than I do that could maybe chime on that, but that's sort of what I found. But that, 200 grain things at about 1,900 to 1,100 feet per second seem to be magical on people.
Well, if you remember, Darryl, that's what Skeeter Skelton and Bill Jordan wanted from the beginning when the 41 Magnum was first initiated. They wanted a 200 grain bullet at 1,000 feet per second. Of course, Remington gave them a 210 grain at 1,400, and then a Model 58 police load but it was a pure lead bullet that leaded really bad. So a lot of departments ended up using the full power Magnum stuff. But that's all they wanted was basically a modern 3840 when they spec'd out the 41 Magnum originally. And then Colonel Cooper, with the 10 millimeter was basically kind of that same formula again in an auto. So they were kind of onto that 40, 41 caliber at 1,000 to 1,200 feet per second being a sweet spot, way before, back in the late 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, there. I think all of these rounds, if I had to sit there and kind of put something, a creed I figured out over a lot of years of looking at, bodies and shooting victims and watching people get shot quite a bit more than most people have probably seen. They like to talk about it. It's big difference when you're actually seeing it in real time, and I've seen it. From the ground, from behind the sights, in air support, I watch people getting shot from the air. I mean, I've seen a lot of people getting shot, and you kind of develop. And what I kind of have found is heaviest load per caliber driven at a moderate velocity seems to be the formula. And whether that's in 32, I really like the 100 grain, 115 grain stuff. 38, that seems to have a little bit of a happy spot. 38 9 millimeter, to me, a lot of the same bullet ranges work pretty well. I think 115 is light for a lot of them. But I really like that 158 in 357, driven at a moderate velocity rather than Mach 17. And I think when you get down, and it's almost like if you look at a 124 plus P plus that everybody seems to like, or the plus P loads in 9, sort of work a lot like the 135 Gold Dot does in 38. Again, you have some of these ranges on stuff, and that just turn out over the years. And when you look at calibers like 45 Colt, 45 ACP, those good rounds have been around for an awfully long time, 44 Special, and they all do some really good stuff and have consistently done it kind of forever. And we've got some ways of making lead hard, hardness in lead, and some bullet jacketing stuff, and we've got some ways to sort of scientifically test things that we didn't in the past. Stuff used to get tested on animals, and I've come to the conclusion people are stand-up deer, and if it works on deer, it works on people. It's that simple. And the size ranges end up being about the same thing, and you start asking yourself, would we use some of these super duper cool rounds people are coming up with? Would you ever take those rounds hunting with you? And if you talk to the hunting people, they're like, not a freaking chance would I ever want to use that on an animal. And yet here we are.
So looking at Lipsies right now, there are 10 objects for sale in 41 Magnum. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, 41 Magnum, it's funny. Daryl's right, though. It gets hot, and it's on its deathbed, and it gets resuscitated. Where the 41 Magnum and the 44 Special really, in my opinion, and my intro into large bore handguns was with a 41 Magnum. When I was 15, I wanted to buy a Ruger Blackhawk, and I had a single 6 4 5/8 inch that I had had for 3 or 4 years at that point, and I wanted a matching large bore gun. And so when I went through the Ruger catalog at 15 years old, all the 44 Magnums were all 7.5 inch super blacks, and they didn't make a 4 5/8 back then. So I looked and said, well, if they make a 41 and a 4 5/8, it looks just like my single 6. So that's the gun I ended up buying. And so my first exploits were with a 41 Magnum. And so I've been shooting them quite a bit over the years. And it's funny, I kind of got away from them. I went really heavy into 44 Magnum and 45 Colt. But now I'm kind of back on the 41 train for a couple of reasons. But where I really find the 41 is better than the 44 is when you get sub 40 ounce guns. 40 ounce plus guns, 44 Magnums, pretty manageable. Heavy loaded 45 Colts, pretty manageable. When you drop down below there and you start talking about these little Freedom Arms 97s, you're talking about the mid-size flat tops and stuff like that. That's where the 41 really comes into play because you can put them on the small frame gun, which the 44 won't work. And even though I would say a 41, when you're talking say 210 to 230 grain bullets compared to a 44 shooting 240s to 265s, is about 90% of the effectiveness. That's just kind of a rough guess. But it's a legit, I would say, 20% less recoil. They're just easier to shoot. When you want to drive 210 grain bullets at 1,400 feet per second in the hunting fields, when you do that in a 41, you can shoot those guns pretty easily and master them pretty fast, as opposed to a 240 grain at that same speed out of a 44. That just kind of, I don't know, for me, that's the level where it starts to get a little not as fun. And so the 41 Magnum is really a great hunting cartridge for your deer size, black bear size game. When I went to Africa this last summer, we went on a plains game hunt, and it was a bunch of guys, and we all brought handguns. And I had a 8 3/8 44 Magnum and a 7.5 inch 480 Ruger, but several of the guys had 41 Magnums, and they were just hammering stuff. It was just as effective as the 44s. None of those animals. We looked at a bunch of big animals that were shot, and there's no person that could have told the difference between what was shot with a 41 and a 44. And they worked really, really well. And they do it with less recoil, and you can put them in smaller guns. 44 Special, the exact same thing. You get below 40 ounces especially a Smith double action gun, and the 44 Special is a sweet spot. Now you can go into smaller L frame guns a lot easier. It's a lot easier to shoot. And 44 Special is no slouch. I mean, you can you can safely drive a 250 grain bullet to 1,100 feet per second out of those guns. In the modern guns, your Ruger flat tops, your Smith & Wesson end frames and stuff like that, with no problem. And that's everything that Elbert Keith wanted in the 44 Magnum. Again, when Remington developed that ammunition, instead of giving him a 250 at 12, he got 250 at 1,400. And he took it. And he ended up using it for a lot, but he only wanted 1,200 feet per second because that's what his heavy 44 special loads were doing. And again, the reason why he went to the 44 special is because he was blowing up Colt single action armies in 45 Colt. Chamber thicknesses just weren't heavy or thick enough for him to get what he wanted. But the 44 special had enough meat there to be able to drive those bullets to that 1,100 feet per second range. So when you're talking single action army size guns, stuff like that, mid frame flat tops, 44 special is really the sweet spot. And it'll do 90% of anything you want to do with a 44 Magnum until you get to those 300 grain plus type loads. That's a totally different animal. And that's where the 44 Magnum really starts to kick off. But really, when I get to that level of power, I'm kind of jumping to the 45 Colt in my large frame Rugers. So 44 Magnum has kind of become for me, it's a kind of do it jack of all trades, but I very rarely pick it as a specialty item these days. Now, for the guy who's not going to hand load, the guy who's just buying factory ammo, 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum is the answer, because that's just going to be the easy button. But if you're going to go down the rabbit hole, single guy revolvers, and you're going to hand load and stuff like that, the 41 Magnum and the 44 Special are really, in a lot of ways, ideal, better cartridges.
Yeah, and I find, and Jason, see if you're on board with this, I find like the 45 Colt and 44 Specials push, the 44 mags crack, and I find like 41 sort of sits right between them.
Yep.
It's not it's not as sharp a recoil as the 44 mags, and it just sort of sits there in between sort of the old pushers, which is 45 Colt, 44 Special. The way those guns recoil for me is they just kind of push straight back into you, and it's real manageable. Even more so than say 357 mag. That's been kind of the fun part of the DB loads, is the DB loads act sort of like a 44 Special or 45 Colt. They tend to push you more than crack you. Where the recoil tends to be, for me, sharper in full house 44 mag. And 41 to me sort of acted almost like 357 Magnum in a heavy load. It's cracky, but it is not like, I mean, 44 mag in a full house load. It's not fun.
No.
By any stretch of the imagination, they're not fun. I posted that video, shooting. I forgot one of my 44 mags with some full out stuff, and it was. I mean, people were like, "You got to be kidding me," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, that's not fun. I mean, it's not going to be fun on the receiving end either." But it's not something you want to go shoot all the time. And my thing with this is competency means something, and I that's kind of my new guide. If I can take 50 rounds of Steve's ammo and go out and run a practice session with a big bore something or other, that's great. That's what I'm looking for. As opposed to a 5-round practice session and not being real happy about it at the end.
Right. I think you're 100% right, Darryl. The 41 is the one large bore handgun cartridge that if you want speed and bullet weight, you can do it in a very pleasant recoil level. And when you get above that, it's diminishing. There are guys out there that can run 270 full dot 44 Magnums full power all day. Absolutely. But for the average shooter, a 210 XTP at 1350, 1400 out of an end frame or Ruger Bisley or something like that is very, very manageable. You can shoot that and get good with it. And for the hunting fields, where the 44 probably not. But if you want something that's under, you start getting in that 1,200 feet per second and less. That's where the 45 Colt really, really comes in good. You take a 300 grain 45 Colt at 1,200, you can kill anything you want, and it's very manageable. You take a 44 Special with a 250, running between 1,000 and 1,200, it'll do the exact same thing. So it's just kind of a matter. I'm like you. Really, the gun dictates what I'm shooting more than necessarily the cartridge. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm not a reloader. I mean, and that's what Brian and I do so well together, is we're so opposite on so much stuff. Is Brian's like a scientist on the reloading machine, and I don't have one. I have a Steve Shields. I was blessed that Steve called me a while back and said, "Hey, I want to do some revolver loads," and I work with all these people. I try to find somebody who does something at some level to work with, and I was blessed to be the guy he came to on revolver stuff. So Steve's basically factory loading the loads I want. 158 grain 357 that doesn't kill me. And that my practice utility field load is exactly identical on the sight set to the same place as the XTP. Yeah, it's hard not to. And it's like making highway patrolmen's great again. Because you don't feel, all of a sudden you go out and grab a highway patrolman and a DB load. It's damn enjoyable to shoot them. You just shoot them all day. Yeah. Or my little favorite, the 3.5-inch 27s and stuff like that. And that works great in K-frames, that would normally be effing miserable with a full house load or breaking the guns. And then, Steve, I'll tell you, there's like the 200 grain 44 Special. Every time we gel test that stuff, it's like, yeah, it's awfully good. Yeah. And again, so now I'm starting to find guns that shoot Steve's loads right to the sights, and they're comfortable, and that tends to be what I like. I grabbed that Model 21 nickel 44 Special 4-inch with the fixed sights. It's basically a Thunder Ranch gun without all the gaudy crap on the side, and they nickeled it, and there's no emblems at all. That thing sits there and puts Steve's 200 grain loads right on top of the front sight. When I go out and I start testing these, and usually I go at 7 yards, I throw a B8 up and shoot 6 rounds is where I start. And I've had that now happen with a couple of these about 2000, 2005-ish era performance center guns are like, they were so magical and we didn't know it. There's no X-ray. I'm like, this thing's either missing the black or something, because my eyesight's not good enough anymore to even see the impact. I walk up and there's like no X, where it literally has put 6 rounds into a hole at 7 yards, and I'm like, on a fixed sight gun. I'm like, this is glorious. This doesn't get any more glorious than this, that I can call high desert and have a load dropped off at my house and put it in a big, simple, easy fixed sight gun that hits right to it and works everywhere in America. I'm like, are we not living in golden times? And by
really
the same token, there are some insane hunting loads out there, that just can kill like the plague on anything kind of walking the planet. And I think we found, between the meat hammer load, the Brian load, and Yetis, and we call Yetis the carbine load. That's not a handgun load. Those things are able to do pretty significant work on just about any North American game, or pretty much anywhere, if it's the right stuff.
I just got done reading John Taffin's Book of the 44 again. And he talks about when he was a kid, they first got a hold of the 44 Magnum. They went to a range and they bought a cylinder full of ammo, whatever, and they rented the gun, and he fired the first round and thought that was enough, but because he was with his friends, he had to finish the cylinder off. He hated doing it, but he had to do it because of peer pressure. Then, if you guys remember that book, at the end of the book, the last chapter or two, he goes, "Okay, now it's time for sensible loads."
Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's like,
Well, you know,
okay,
when I
now we got
Well,
loads here that we can actually shoot, have fun with, and be enjoyable shooting again. Here's some
when
loads
I
for you. Yeah.
the last time I visited John right before he passed away, we spent a couple of days just looking at guns and stuff. And I said, John, I said, how many 44 specials do you have in here? So we were looking at several, and he goes, oh, well, I got over 100 single actions. I guess if you count the double actions too, it's probably about 150. It's like,
Oh,
so by far, the majority of his revolver collection was 44 specials. So that tells you right there where he kind of fell out on what was the right answer.
yeah, and
Same
you
thing
know,
with
again,
Skeeter. He had the
Yeah,
44 special, sold it, went to 44 Magnum, said enough of this,
yeah,
and
exactly.
went back to it.
yeah,
Well,
you know,
I got from John's collection his 1950 military 44 special, and after shooting this gun with high desert ammunition at gun site, I can see why these guns were so special. I mean, this gun, we were shooting steel poppers at 200 yards with this thing. It was fixed sight,
Oh,
in-frame gun,
Here,
and
can we see it?
I mean, just crazy.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
so this was that's a 1950. So you got the short cylinder, you got the tapered barrel. Yeah, I mean, they just don't get this gun. I think was made in 1952, I believe, and so total stock and just shoots absolutely lights out. But this is the gun a Southwest lawman would have carried. This is the Jelly Bryce style gun, the kind of guns that Skeeter was after. Now the 1950 targets are the ones that Skeeter liked, and they had the adjustable sights, and that was basically the predecessor to the Model 24, which was kind of the predecessor to the mountain guns. So these guns kind of have a lineage. You kind of started here, and you went you went to the mountain gun. So which is kind of cool because now you can not shameless plug on the Litchie's exclusive mountain guns, but
oh, it's fine.
these guns kind of give you the modern features of stainless steel, the endurance upgrades that happened in the early 90s, the option to shoot 44 Magnum if you want, that basically handle like these old 1950 targets and stuff like that.
okay, hold on, I got to show you this if we're going to do this now.
Absolutely.
What do you say? Does that look like the exact same dang thing?
Yeah,
I'm waiting. I pulled my Tyler grips, my bear hugs off this to put on that new 27, and I had to put these ugly poor Spiegels on here temporarily. Brian and I, we were just out at Bobby's, and he let us pick wood and make grips, and they're in the mail coming, and it's going to go on this one. But this thing with Steve's ammo, Parks rounds right on top. I mean, right on the front sight. And again, that's your 1926 third model HE, your 1950 military. Hello, why can't we have these? I'm like, there was a time and sadly the reason this gun I believe was even made was because the Thunder Ranch ones didn't sell. I think it's because all the crap they put on the side of the gun, and they ended up having to. They just nickeled
Sorry.
these. Yeah, you got all the junk on the side. Yeah,
I'm seeing a pattern here, guys.
yeah.
Big shot
All of
in
a
frame
sudden,
44 specials.
yeah, and that gun is so comfortable to shoot.
Yes.
With Steve's ammo, and I'm running because I'm running it as an urban gun. I'm running the 200 grain stuff, but that'll shoot. I mean, that gun with a Skeeter load in it, especially a Brian Skeeter load that's a little less than the normal Skeeter loads, would be fantastic. It was funny when I Jason sent me, I'm lucky to get a release 396, which is my daily carry now. I carry a 396 almost all the time now. 5-shot 44 special, and I got the Hammer Forge grips on it. And with a 200 grain, that thing was just a phenomenal shooter. And then I shot some Skeeter loads in it, and I got to 4. And I said, I don't want to do this. And, that last one can go back in the box. I'm pretty good with it. But
Yeah.
this thing, in a full size 4-inch end frame, they're just kind of something magical about them. They shoot good. You can carry them anywhere. I'm going out, and I'm filling feeders and out on the ranch and doing stuff. And, there's just something nice about having guns like this. I don't want to go take down a foreign country or something, but I'm not in that line of work these days. Um, you know, they'll do a lot and they do it well, and they're a proven package. And again, there's something nice about a double action revolver that's big, sucks up recoil, hits to the sights, and has a really nice, manageable trigger to it. Darn it, it's America. Um,
Yeah.
and these,
Well, when
go ahead.
I was gonna say when Darryl and Brian came down last time, I think it was in August or September, and we put a video out not long ago of shooting some 32 H&Rs through a windshield and stuff. We were there just filming some content, and they had this car sitting on the range, and so we started shooting the windshield with the 32s to see what happened. And it actually really surprised us. But Brian had his 629 mountain gun out there, and we had some skeeter loads, which if somebody's watching or listening and wondering what the hell's a skeeter load, it's basically a 250 grain Keith bullet with running approximately 900 to 950 feet per second, depending on barrel length, cylinder gap. So it was 7.5 grains of unique was kind of the skeeter load. But anyways, so we shot one of those through that windshield, and of course it just, with no fuss or anything, just was lodged all the way in the tailgate of that Sequoia. I mean, it just punched a complete straight hole, and we both, Darryl and I, looked at each other. We're like, "Yep, Skeeter knew what he's talking about." It's just without a lot of flash. You didn't have muzzle flash. You weren't ringing your ears. Just low pressure. I mean, that round's running like at 15,000 psi. Nothing crazy, and it just works. It just works every time.
Yeah, I'm finding that a lot of the loads that we've been doing, working with Darryl and Chuck and Brian and whatever, moderate loads, easy shooting loads, but like back in the 1800s, when everybody wanted a matching caliber for, not only the handgun but the rifle, like this one here is there it is. That's the DB load out of a lever gun. I don't know what do you want? You've got something that's going to be performing really good out of a snub and out of a 4-inch, and then you put it in a lever gun. You get it's still easy shooting out of a lever gun, but you get more velocity, and it turns into like the old Remington core-lock bullet. It just mushrooms to no end. And my nephew carries, he runs cattle with the family there, and he's always packing his Marlin 44 Magnum. He runs my 44 Magnum loads, which are about 1075, 240 grain XTPs. He's downed a couple black bear, several deer, and then some coyotes at close range. And it's like, it's easy shooting 44 Magnum at at what, 1050, 1075, and then you stick it in a lever gun, and it does that, and it's like win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it works. Right. That's what I started my oldest son deer hunting with, was a Ruger 7744 bolt action what I did was I downloaded some 250 keys to basically a Skeeter style load, but out of the rifle they were running about 1,200 feet per second, and he kills several deer with that load, and it just it just works. It just, you hit something with a big bore diameter at moderate velocity, like Darryl was saying earlier, things just respond to it pretty quickly and go down to the dirt. I mean, you can shoot them at any angle. You're going to get penetration. You're not worried about, I want to take a perfect broadside shot. And they're super mild. They're not loud. There's no recoil. It's got a lot going for it. If you're hunting in areas where you're not going to be shooting past 100, 150 yards, 44 Magnum lever gun is a very, very good hunting rifle.
Yeah, and I was lucky enough to work myself into a 41 mag 1894 Marlin, and
man, I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this.
Yeah, anytime you're in a Matt Olivier deal, it can get, and especially when he knows you want it.
Hey, Jason, hint, 41 Magnum.
Oh, trust me. We've been talking. Don't worry.
Okay.
I just want
Go
Darryl's
ahead, Daryl.
horseshoe.
Sorry.
I just want his horseshoe.
Yeah, I was sitting there, and the first couple rounds I shot out of it, I was up at Shoot a Solid, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so because it's kind of like shooting a 357 mag lever gun, but you're throwing some serious stuff. I mean, I'm like, God, this is pretty good. So yeah, a lot of this stuff, and I've sort of rediscovered. I know Jim Wilson just put out a pretty good article on Gun Tales about Wallman's rifle. I carry a lot of lever guns now, and mainly because they're companion shooters to the handgun I'm carrying. Is your handgun and your rifle load off the same round, the same ammo, all of that. They all function good together. For John Q. Citizen walking around stuff, there's nothing wrong with that. And I'm working a little law enforcement stuff in super rural America, and it's funny. I've been I'm 61 years old, so it's not like I'm out there work. I told them early on, I'm not out here to work patrol at 3:00 in the morning. I already have that trophy. But I've worked a couple patrol shifts. One of them, they called me for New Year's. In the couple times, I haven't been to a police call yet in multiple shifts. I'm like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. They called me for New Year's. I actually threw a Glock with a Koa on as a duty gun. And I'm like, because where I came from, it wasn't if you were going to have an officer involved shooting on New Year's, it was going to be how many were you going to have. And, and I'm sitting there going, this is weird. This is totally weird. But, and then all of a sudden, like lever guns in places like where I live make a lot of sense. In the meantime, I was off the day it happened with my job at the fairgrounds. We had a bison escape. If you're not familiar with bison, they're dickheads.
Yeah.
they're like dickhead cows. The I think about 4 miles out, Oklahoma Highway Patrol ended up having to kill it because they just couldn't get the thing wrangled. But that's what I deal with now is big pissed off animals, whether it's at the cow horse shows, whatever, rodeo, shit like that. I'm like, I'm perfectly fine with a lever gun and a big bore revolver. For what I do most of the time, I'm perfectly happy with that. And, again, just find the right tool for the job. I wouldn't go back and work LA with that stuff anymore. That wouldn't be my first choice for deep urban metropolitan policing. But, for out here in the boonies where most of America actually lives, there's nothing wrong with that, Or, again, just throwing stuff in your car where it's kind of nice that your handgun and carbine take the same ammo.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can load off your belt on either one of them,
And I found it to be true.
My first two mentors in law enforcement were both packing 41 Magnums back then in the mid 80s, and they carried them all the way up into early mid 90s. They just didn't want to switch out of them, and several of them had been in on shootings with them, and one and done. You get a mass slug coming out of them things. It's like effective.
Oh, all of our 45 Colt shootings were one and dones. If they connected, and it almost didn't matter where the guys hit them. They were one and dones. Equally, 45 ACP plus PHST was as close to as I've ever seen as a death ray coming out of a handgun. Again, look at the ballistics of that, and then compare that to the new federal 45 HST. I'm sorry, 44 mag HST load. It's practically identical to what we were shooting out of our USPs.
Well, you think about it, Darryl. Short of it being a hollow point, it's basically ballistically the same as a skeeter load.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah. It's like, it's like, none of this is new. And then, I love listening to these guys on social media, the internet are arguing about stuff. You know what? Like I said, I've been to a lot of autopsies on stuff and shooting investigations. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now, in most cases, the most dangerous commentators on any ballistics tend to be um, emergency room uh, trauma surgeons and medical examiners who don't know anything about guns, but they think, honest to God, if you don't tell them what it is, they really don't know what went through them. You find me an ME who can tell the difference between, say, a 40 hollow point and a 9mm hollow point, and they can really point out and tell me with any level of certainty, or shoot a 380 at that point. If they can, you can throw all three of those through and tell me that most of the 22s you can kind of tell. But other than that, most of the stuff they can't tell the difference. So
it's the same way in the hunting fields.
Yeah, you don't know.
I was
Did it
doing
go
death investigations. We had a suspicious death. Prosecutor wanted an autopsy on it. So we live was working in a rural county, so we had to go to a major metro to get our ME stuff done. And they had the major metro had an autopsy in front of mine, and it was a shooting victim. And I said, "Hey, can I sit in on this one? I want to see what all the ballistic stuff on it." So get down in the dock with the forceps, pulls a bullet out. I didn't think I had said it out loud, but obviously I did. I thought I was just thinking it. I said, "That's a gold dot." And he wheeled around on me and says, "Oh, you know your bullets?" I said, "Well, probably not everything you're going to pull out of people, but I know what that is." He goes, "Okay, hot shot, what caliber it is?" And he had the mushroom toward me. I said, "Turn it around so I can see the base of the bullet." And I said, "It's 40 caliber." And the ME looks at the officers and says, "Is it?" He goes, "Yep, 40 caliber." He looked at me and thought I was God. I was like, that was just a luck shot, man. I just happened to know what that thing was. Yeah. But after that, I was able to say, "Hey, Doc, when you ever get a shooting victim in, could you call me? I like to be able to kind of do my own little study on stuff. Obviously, it's going to be between you and me and whatever. I can't write anything down or take pictures, blah, blah, blah. But shooting gel blocks is fine. I'm a big FBI gel block person, and to get the best results we can with Doc Roberts and whatever. But pulling them out of people is where it's at. And so I was able to get in on about 40 of different shooting victims with different calibers and going, yeah, this is working. It's like, man, this is not what everybody's saying it's supposed to be doing here. Go ahead, Darryl. Sorry.
If you don't have the bullet out of the body, that's where I'm saying, if they don't have the bullet, they don't know what it is. If there's just a hole through it, they really don't know what did it. They can BS all they want, but the reality is, if there's just a straight hole from one end to the other, they really don't know, and it doesn't matter. Which is when I kind of got out of the whole, oh my God, it's got to expand and do all. You know what it is? I needed to make a hole in one side and a hole in the other side, and preferably the parachute works enough where it falls out the other side. That's what I'm looking for now is I want enough. I would rather have a little more penetration and a little less expansion than the other way around, which is why I like XTP so much now in these revolver loads, because where is XTP really shown to be? Who really loves XTP? Hunters.
Yeah.
Hunters. You don't really see anybody talk, "Oh, I'm running, 9mm XTP." That's not, how many police agencies are using it? Not a lot, if any. That's not what they're all flocking to. But if you go talk to the hunters on guys who are shooting, whitetails and muleys, boy, XTPs are really popular. And
I see that in a lot of forums. People talk about self-defense, whatever. It's all about expansion. Then you go to the forums that talk about hunting. It's all about penetration. And I'm just going, give me one threat that was ever stopped by expansion alone. I'll wait. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's good. The good thing about XTPs and big bore cartridges is that you usually get both. And so it's what, especially for hunting, and I would imagine for people too, is you want straight line penetration. That's where bullet shape really comes into play. That's why the Keith bullets and the LBT style bullets are so good in a hunting fields, because those bullets stay straight and drive, where you want them to go. You take some of those really truncated cones and smaller me-plat types bullets, and they tend to, the back end of the bullet ones that overtake the front end, and then things start turning and going weird, and you don't get that straight line. All the guys that I know up in Alaska, stuff like that, who carry big bore revolvers, are all shooting big flat point style bullets. They don't want anything that has a pointed shape to it. They want something that's gonna grab and bite if it's got to hit a skull or something like that and not deflect. So that was one of the things I told Matt earlier. I said I did a little homework, because this was a point that I had brought up years ago when I was really touting blowing the 41 Magnum flag there for a long time. Was that you can make a 41 Magnum into a 44 Magnum pretty easily with bullet diameter. So a 44 is really only a 43 Magnum. Let's just call it what it is. 41 is a true .410. The cool thing is that the bullet that the 44 Magnum gained its reputation on was a 250 grain Keith bullet. The Keith semi-wide cutter. That's the bullet that when people think of 44 Magnum, that's what it is. But the me-plat, which is the flat of the nose on that bullet, is only average. It's between .280 and .300, depending on who makes the bullet. I think the original Lyman mold was about .290. So we'll just say .290. That's kind of in the middle. If you take an LBT style bullet, which is a Darryl Smith design, which uses a little bit more bullet weight outside the case, it's a little more nose heavy. A lot of guys who hunt will say that they're a little bit better. You can get a little bit lower pressure with them. There's two main styles of LBT bullets. It's the long flat nose and the wide flat nose. The LFN, the long flat nose 41 LBT, has a .300 me-plat. The wide flat nose has a .335 me-plat. So now, granted, you can make a 44 LBT and it's bigger, but if you want to judge a 41, if you want to make a 41 Magnum basically have the same killing effectiveness of a 250 grain Keith, it should have long flat nose to it. You have this the actual bullet that's making the contact with the meat is the same, and so you can drive that same bullet weight at about the same speed. So if you got a mid-frame 41 Magnum, or you've got a Freedom Arms 97, something like that, you can basically get 44 Magnum performance out of those guns by just changing the bullet style. Fun fact, the 250 grain Keith 45 Colt bullet, the original bullet, the me-plat on it was only .320. So a LBT 41 Magnum wide flat nose still has a bigger me-plat than the 250 Keith 45 Colt bullet. So now, granted, you can do an LBT 45 Colt bullet, and this is going to be bigger too. But those are two very, very classic bullets, the 250 Keith and both the 45 Colt and the 44, that has done everything that needs to be done. You can basically duplicate that with the 41 if you use the right bullets. That's my little tip for everybody. Yeah, that's cool. And you can do it with less recoil.
That's cool. And what's going through in my mind, because it's bizarre and my thinking process is bizarre. That sounds like a 9mm wad cutter.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. You're basically, yeah. You're shooting a 32 wad cutter. Yeah. It's just just a me-plat. Yeah.
38 wad cutters.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's just putting that amount of displacement in a straight line where it's supposed to go tends to work. It just tends to work. And as a matter of fact, the guy. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say, back when Darryl Smith was developing the LBTs, they actually took the because a lot of people, the semi-wide cutter Keith style bullet, what has the shoulder, which is more of a full diameter. But they did a lot of testing. I spent some time visiting Ross Seifert one time. We talked about this quite a bit, and they tested that with Darryl Smith, and they would basically paint the shoulder of the Keith bullet, and then shoot it through different test media. And when they would pull those bullets, that paint was still intact. So what their theory was that shoulder actually was not doing it, was actually not making contact with the whatever they were shooting. What was happening was that big flat point meat plat was actually pushing that, was kind of making a wake, so to say, and it was flowing around that shoulder. So the shoulder wasn't really cutting anything anyways. So that's why Vero wanted a bigger meat plat up front, and we were seeing much bigger wound channels with his LBT style bullets.
Let me throw another thing out there that I've kind of found over the years, and it kind of fits in when we're talking about these big bore, magnums and specials, but at least your 40 plus club stuff. Bone hits. Bone hits hurt. When people that's the one thing is, everybody wants to talk about psychological stops or whatever. And okay. My experience has been that when I watch people get shot or interviewing officers who've shot people and stuff, or even this goes with the hunters as well, when we get stuff that kind of goes in soft heart lung stuff and comes out, things kind of look down at it and go, oh, that's not good, and lay down and sort of peter out. The ones where the shootings we had where it was like, oh my God, I've been shot, or just dropped dudes. When we were shooting guys with 45 Colt, and you hit stuff like femurs, big shoulder bones, that stuff hurts. Hitting craniums, all of that stuff adds an element that the smaller bullets don't do. And it's sort of why I'm real big. And people know now I'm not averse to carrying mouse calibers, because I look at mouse calibers as ice picks. I'm going to try to drive that right through something really important and look for that. I need to go lay down and watch the lights go out. That's what I'm looking at. And with things like 22 and 32, especially on the type of guns I carry, I can feel a sternum at the end of that gun, or I can get them into an eye orbital, and that's what I'm looking for. The nice thing with these big bore guns is you actually do end up hitting a femur, a shoulder. You're coming in through a vehicle window and coming in through some big, meaty, bony stuff. Like I said, I'll tell you what, I know for a fact that momentum is a thing. When people want to talk about knockdown power, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. What the words they should be looking about is momentum contacting hard things. It's where I think there is. I've had this argument on the 22 end of what's better, 22 long or 22 Magnum. Go shoot a steel plate with it, and it'll give you all the answers you need. With modern ammunition, both of them will penetrate about pretty similar. Go shoot a steel plate, and you tell me if you end up with a bone hit, which one's going to hurt more, or try to drive that thing through some big bone stuff. I think the edge goes to 22 mag. Equally on the big bore stuff, there is nothing that hits that stuff like big 40 caliber stuff, and particularly when they're being driven at those Magnum velocities. When they do hit bone, it's some pretty serious stuff and gets through it. And it's for me why I really like, I make the case for there is still a place for big bore rounds. And again, we saw the exact same thing when we were shooting plus P 230 grain HST. Now, we had to shoot that out of guns that liked it, which was the USBs. I will tell you right now, 1911s don't like that gun, and Glocks don't tend to like that round either. They'll maybe shoot the regular, but the plus PHST load is no BS. It's like shooting a Magnum, four caliber round, but we saw devastating performance on it. And some of those were, I got to see the first shooting we did with that. That was 7. It was through window glass and through a side and 7 layers of clothing. And it looked like a federal ad. you know. It was like, boy, this looks like the old days when we're shooting 45 Colt, you know. It was like some pretty serious stuff. So there is some, you know, I don't like getting into the whole like 9 versus 45 or the 45 or the 40 caliber plus revolvers versus the smaller calibers. But what the big bullets really do is they do drive better momentum on things. It's not necessarily a factor when we're shooting things like gel or internal body shots or soft clothing and things like that. But it really comes into being a factor when we're trying to drive it through large bones. And, you know, the reality is humans are generally protected by large bones, as are a lot of animals. You know, when you talk to guys who hunt, the one thing these big bore magnums go is, yeah, I just go through the shoulder. You know, I'm not trying to place that around it. I just go through it. You know, it's cool. You know, guys who are shooting pigs, they're a pain in the neck because they're so thick and they got a lot of big bones and stuff. And guys want, you know, if they're really actually trying to recover it, you know, you want something that's going to break things going through, and that's what those rounds do.
The first Magnum shooting I was involved, wasn't me shooting it. It was a confrontation with a couple of people. Anyways, one guy was shot with a 44 Magnum in the leg, and this is where I came up with a term. You know, we talk about physiological stops, which is the body shuts down; psychological stops, where we just think, okay, got a hold of me, I'm gone, I just got to lay down.
Sure.
But this was the first one where I came up with physical stop. The fight was still in the guy, but the bullet went through the femur, and parts of his femur was on the wall behind him, and he was not mobile. But the fight was still there, unbelievably, and we had to take him down and cuff his ass. But his leg was just nothing, and that 44 Magnum took that femur out, like I said, and spit the whatever on all over the wall, you know, the bone and shreds and shards and everything. And it's like, so I came up with that third one. You know, you got physiological, you got psychological, you also have physical. And I go back, and people said physical. I said, yeah, I go back to the old Monty Python with the 2 nights, you know, where he slices the, you know, the arms off and whatever. Yeah, you know, just a flesh wound, right? You know, no, come back here, I'll bite you, you know, type of a thing. But yeah, you take a big bore into a heavy bone, yeah, the bone's gonna lose every time.
So let's take a quick little break. I don't have anything recorded, but on this break, hold on, let me find, where is my link? It's right there. Yes, it is. We're going to share a screen, and it's, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. Let's see here. Is it this one? No. There it is. So Primary and Secondary has a new sponsor. It's High Desert Cartridge.
Nice.
We talked about them a little bit. For me, when it comes to my revolver stuff, whether it's my practice or my carry, it's High Desert Cartridge. The reason why it is because this is affordable. It's available for the most part. It's becoming popular. Jump on it now while it's available. But it shoots nicely, especially when it gets into some of the DB flavor stuff. On the screen, I have 41 Magnums. I have 44 Specials and 44 Magnums. Great stuff. Lots of fun. All the calibers that we talk about, the 32s, the 327s, all the good fun stuff. It's all there. As well as I was looking yesterday along with subsonic stuff, 9mm subsonic. Not that I really have a use for it, but that's kind of cool. If I did find, you know what, it would be nice to have this. So yeah, sponsor.
Hey, Matt, don't do that.
What?
I'm having a hard time getting that ammo now. It used to be real easy. Yeah, I used to just have ammo show up like the ammo fairy, and now it's like Steve's filling like regular customer orders now.
Yep.
Like crazy.
I gotta thank everybody for this thing. I just hired my third person, and we're looking for a fourth.
That's awesome.
We're backed up. It's that bad, but I have had some unhappy customers. I'm trying to do it as best I can. I know.
Luckily, I got a pretty good.
Well,
I got a pretty good stockpile, so I'm not dying yet. But I'm like, you know, and I'm just as bad. I send everybody to Steve, but I'm going. This is like a lot of people where I used to get stuff pretty easily, and then they get popular, and all of a sudden it's hard for the old loyalists to do it. But it makes my heart happy that and we did this. I'm sure Jason's on board. And I was. At SHOT Show, I go, look, the 396 night card is the Steve Shields 200 XDP gun. Period. That's guys are all, what should I get for ammo? Go get on the website, look for High Desert.
Thank you, Jason.
and order up some 200 grain XDPs, and then the practice load. You'll be happy.
Yeah.
Darryl got his gun, and then I get this text at 6:30 in the morning. He's like, "I just shot the super test with this thing. I aced it cold with the 396 night guard with Steve's ammo." I'm like, I guess I'm not getting that sample back.
Nope.
And then Steve can also tailor if there's anything specific that you need. He has the ability to, just like what he did for the DB flavored stuff. He can hand tailor stuff.
Yeah. As soon as I get my fourth person on board, I'm looking. I think for right now. I mean,
believe me, Matt, we have come up with all sorts of things for Steve to do that are in line with Steve just said. The big one a lot of us have been harping on him is 45 auto rim stuff, to kind of go in line with a lot of this other stuff that he's doing so well. But there's only so much time in a day. But yeah, it was funny when Jason sent that first night guard. I told Brian, you're getting the 357 because you're that guy. I'm taking that 44 special. Brian is about as bougie as they get, and it's freezing. And the day before it was like 80 degrees and perfect and everything. And we're going, yeah, we'll just go to the range tomorrow and film and do all this stuff. And I get there, and they got like a little fishing pond out there. There's whitecaps on the pond. It's like 30 degrees. The wind is howling, and Brian's all, I'm going to stay inside and do the video stuff. I'm going to get all the video set up and all that. So I'm out there with that 44 and just freezing. My hands were freezing cold. And I shot that super test, and I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Me and this gun like each other. And that's, again, it's always a good thing. And I feel and it's hard to not feel confident with, a gun you've tested, its capabilities, the ammo's hitting dead to the sights. I've tested both in gel and all the other stuff with the ammo. I know it works. It's a confident way to carry, if that makes sense. Completely. I don't care that it's only 5 rounds. It's like I feel really good that me and this gun kind of gel at where I am in life with this tool, and a lot of that is, caliber, the delivery system, and the ammo in it are all good. It's like making that tool kind of work. And for somebody like me who's kind of leaves my little rural area and then heads into the city once in a while, I mean, it's just enough to do what I needed to do, I feel confident if I did have to shoot an animal with it, it'd be fine. And if I had to shoot an upright whitetail with it, it'd be fine too,
Well, and that's a huge factor of the whole system, having the good ammunition that performs the way you need it to. And I imagine there are a lot of people that do carry a firearm as a talisman, and they might be, who knows, they might have some semi-auto with an optic, and they have no idea if anything's even zeroed. With this stuff, it works well. It works great with the various revolvers I have, whether it's a snubby with a wad cutter or you name it.
Well, the beautiful thing about that setup is that you got that XTP that's just a great do everything load, but even that practice load, that 200 grain full metal jacket flat point, that load, I wouldn't hesitate to carry that load in the field where there's hogs, black bears, anything like that, because it's going to do what it needs to do. So, I mean, you just got a great, don't have to worry. That's one less thing to worry about, and Darryl and I talk about this all the time. We're at that time in life where it's like these guys that like, well, I'm about to go into town, so I got to switch this magazine and do this, and now I'm going back in the woods, so I got to switch this and then I got my wintertime load, and I got my summertime load, and I got my home defense load. I'm like, I'm done with all that. Give me something that's easy. It's easy. It just works, and that gun at 23 ounces, you can carry it all the time. It's there.
That's the big thing for me is the weight stuff. We've talked about some optimal weights on stuff. 36 ounces is one of those weird weights, 24 ounces, 14 ounces. All of these have sort of their little place, and then plus 40. They all have a little place in the gun world of how we're carrying. What's a true belt gun? What's a good service gun for concealment? That's in that 36 ounce range. Get down in that 24 is where I kind of like to be for a true concealment gun. And then the ultra lightweight stuff I'm going to put in a pocket or on an ankle. I like it down in that, sub 14 ounce range. So a lot of these have these little happy spots to them, and it's just putting that tool in there. I had this conversation with a pretty significant experienced guy today, and I said, there's something about sub 2 pounds of carry. So for what you're carrying, are you underneath 2 pounds? If I can get 2 guns under the 2 pounds that are accessible in multiple different places as opposed to one gun, to me, it's a win. Even though I'm probably sacrificing on one of the guns so that I can carry a backup or a second gun. I'm sitting there looking at this as an accessibility thing that makes a difference. And what I normally carry now is that 396 Night Guard, and then I've got a 351C in my pocket.
Yep.
It's a nice. I'm right at that 36 ounce weight, which would be your lightweight commander, your Glock and multiple mags, your whatever. But I'm down in that range where I got 2 decent guns. One's in my pocket, and when I get home, the first thing I do is I take the 396 off because I don't want to wear a belt and the gun sticking out and all that. But I still got a 351C in my pocket. To me, it's been a great combo. When I went to Vegas for SHOT, I carried, that was my travel setup, and I went back a week later because I got my place in Arizona sold, and that's all I took with me. It's the same thing. I loaded the same package up in the same Pelican case and got in the plane and went to the same airport and did all the same stuff. And it was perfectly fine. I mean, and like I look at, if I'm sitting in a hotel room, that 396 is on the nightstand. And then, when I go down to just get coffee in my gym shorts in the morning, and I've got a 22 mag in my, my gym shorts. And then, I got a pocket gun for that I can, covered low ready carry at the gas pump. All of these things work together for what I call realistic, real world concealed carry and defensive carry. And then, like Jason's saying, what's the beauty, and I almost don't call the like the DB load and the 200 and stuff, I almost don't call them practice loads for it. I call it a utility load, because that's the stuff, if you had to go shoot an animal with, the practice load is the animal shooting full penetration load for the XTP is all that comes down to. After some conversations with Brian and some of the incidents we've had at where I work, my thing has been now, whether I'm carrying a 357 or if I'm carrying a 44 special, I have a speed loader or reload with the flat points in it. Specifically, if I need to dump that load and go to that because I'm dealing with 1,200 pounds of angry something or other, I'm a little. I think that's a better way to go. And so that's what I'm using actually as my reload is the training load. It's really my utility load. And that tends to be what I keep in the companion lever guns as well. Same reason. The reason I'm carrying a lever gun is not for whatever. It's in case I have an animal problem.
Well, this is what people forget. You take a 44 Magnum or a 45 Colt lever gun. You say like a 265 to 320 grain bullet and it's at full power, you're going to get about 1,500 to 1,600 feet per second. What is that? That's a 454 pistol out of a handgun, which everybody will tell you will kill anything in the world with no problem. I mean, I watched Bob Baker shoot a Cape Buffalo with it in Africa and just pole-axed it, and with a 454 pistol. But if you tell somebody, I'm going to take this 16-inch lever gun and 45 Colt and go Cape Buffalo hunting, they think you're crazy. But it's the same projectile at the same speed. The animal doesn't know what kind of gun it was shot of. So a short, handy 5.5 pound lever gun with the right loads is absolute medicine for anything you're going to run across.
Well, even for carry, I used to be the guy that was carrying the semi-auto with 2 magazines and all the cool stuff, the stuff you got on Instagram. And it wasn't until I came along through primary and secondary and the evolution where it got to, I heard Darryl talking about the 22 Magnum, and I thought that's silly. And I started looking at 22 Mag and went down that pathway, and now I've got one that I stick in my pocket. And it's you can you're right, for the weight penalty you can carry 2 guns, and for a 5-shot revolver, it put some of my semi-autos back in the safe to where they're range toys now. They're fun range toys. But when I'm going to the gas station or just running down there to grab something for the wife, I don't need 15 rounds in a magazine and then extra 15 rounds on me. I can carry a 38 and speed loader and be perfectly okay at Kroger or Publix or what have you, and be fine. And if I wanted to, I could just stick something else on me in a coat pocket. And that whole journey into the, I used to have revolvers and thought those only went to the range. Those are only toys, pretty to look at. And now I have I call it peepaw jacket, an old Wrangler jacket with the really deep pocket out front. Come wintertime, I can slide that 36-1 3-inch in there with, a 38 load. And that's, man, I could sit there with my hand on the gun if I was at a gas station and in a precarious situation. I imagine that 396 same way. You could put a lot of different places, and the hammer forged grips would allow just carry just about anywhere. I mean, like, it's perfect.
Well, it's funny that those night guards have resonated with a lot of guys like you who probably grew up shooting carrying striker fired polymer pistols, because that 23, 24 ounce range of the night guard is the same weight as most of your Glock 19, M&P compact, whatever. Those guns weigh the same. When you'd hand somebody, this is a 696. So this is a predecessor to the 396, but this is an all steel 5-shot 44 special L frame. This gun's 36 ounces. So you take somebody who's used to carrying 22 to 25 ounce guns, and you hand them a loaded 40 ounce gun for 5 shots, or like, the math doesn't work. And rightfully so, I get it. You all of a sudden now have a gun that weighs the same as that Glock does or whatever else. Now it kind of makes sense. Like, okay, I get it. Now I've got a gun that I can do different things with. I don't have a weight penalty for carrying. I think these lighter weight guns have kind of gotten some people thinking, okay, I'm not necessarily stuck with a big, heavy, low capacity gun now. I actually have something I can carry in my normal everyday life that's pretty usable.
Well, I've also found that some of these revolvers, you can hide them places on you that if you're going into a place that doesn't really they're not a fan, you can go there with a revolver and ain't nobody gonna know. And
the hammer forged hook grips are magical for that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And let me add a little something to that. That's come about with, so when I started in this game, and I'm kind of back to these now, I've got a bunch of them again. I've been carrying them more than I used to. If I told you that about every tier 1 special snowflake badass in the world, one of the most popular guns when I got into this was the SIG P230. Every team that was carrying 226s, they were carrying P230s.
Yep.
Because you took your war rig off that's got your SIG and all your magazines and your junk, and then you put on your jeans and a t-shirt, and you dumped a P230 down the front of your pants because it had the little hook on the end of the magazine so that it couldn't really slide all the way down. It was double action with a hammer, so you kind of didn't feel like you really had to have a holster. And a lot of the guys in those communities, plus the intel guys, man, you never carried a holster. It's a dead giveaway when you're, in a lot of places you're not supposed to have a gun. You got a holster on.
Yeah.
Fast forward a few years, if you guys knew how many of these guys out here of kind of how many 351Cs are stuffed into pockets and gym shorts and their your training shorts and little fanny packs and crap like that. That's the next phase of that. And the beauty of that 396 with the hammer forge grips is, like you said, I'm just going to run down the street to go get something. I'm just going to shove it in my pants, and should we do that? No. Do we know better that we should have a system in place with my belt and a well-constructed vetted holster and a double magazine pouch because you need to have at least 2 reloads? Yes. Yeah, we really should because ISIS may come. It could happen and we'd feel bad if we didn't, because 25 years ago, that's how I thought. And now I just grab that thing, and if I don't want to put a belt and all that crap on it, I just shove it in my pants and I go do what I need to do, and I've got a gun on me. And is it optimal? No. But I'll tell you what, you know what I have? A gun. A good functioning gun with a round that I know works and a gun I know works, and the sights are verified to that load. And all of a sudden, that's sort of a magically good thing. And I don't worry about it, and I don't worry about it going off in my pants. I'll tell people, look, I've been around this block a few times in the trading world and doing what I've done and stuff. I have always been, when I'm shoving a striker-fired gun down the front of my pants, I treat them like rattlesnakes, and I'm going to steal a Scott Reetzism, and you better be switched on when you're doing that. And there was a time in my life when I was always switched on, and it didn't matter if I had a rattlesnake in my pants because I was always fairly switched on. And my blood pressure now is better that I'm not switched on all the time. And I don't mind that I don't care that I have a gun on me. I'm not focused on trigger finger discipline and is it going to go off, and should I, if I get bumped and I have to have the perfect holster, and did I get clothing between the gun and the hole? All of a sudden having a 12-pound trigger and a hammer is a lot of relief in my life at a stage where I don't feel I need to be as switched on as I used to be. If you're in a professional gun carrying role, carry professional gun things and do the training that goes with it. Because a lot of guys, well, I have a compensated, I got a rolling special with light and all the thing, and they can talk about, how many lumens versus candela and all the bullshit that doesn't matter. And then they never practice.
Daryl.
Yeah, and then they never, they never practice at all. You don't need to practice when you got all that crap. And and the guys who have all that crap and then practice, like I used to practice, like guys I know who practice, they're fine. But a lot of these guys, it's all show, no go, no blow, no nothing. Where I'm now surrounded in a circle of friends who are a bunch of gray beard mean people who've got revolvers in their pocket and then big boy, 396s and stuff shoved down the front of their pants. They're dangerous animals. And, and I think you're just fine with it. And all of a sudden, things like 44 and 41 mag and all of that are great things. Because like we said, they just blow through stuff and they function. I'm not worried about slide velocity or does this round function the gun. And we can do things with bullets with these guns we can't do in a semi-auto because the ammo runs the gun on a semi-auto. My finger runs the gun on the revolver, so I can put ammo in it that's flat in the front. And guys who shoot game a lot will tell you things that are flat in the front work.
Yeah, and I'm not going to look for trouble. So I mean, the
Yeah.
5-shot revolver works great. I mean, I'm not a sworn officer. I am military, but we don't do that stateside. That's not what we that's not what we do. It's my mindset is to, just like, I remember reading Varg Freeborn's book back in the day. Know your mission. My mission is to get my wife and kids the hell away from whatever, just to make sure I get home to, use my own phrase, drink that cold Coors in the fridge. Like, that's my mission set. Go home every day. And it's been a joy to learn the revolver side of it, because guess what? I don't need a whole bunch of gear. It's just literally speed strip or a speed loader and that 5-shot revolver, whether it's a 38, a 22 mag, which has more rounds, or like the 396. And that 44 special, from everything I've read, because it sent me down a rabbit hole, that'll take care of just about anything I'm going to run into anywhere in the metro area that I live. That's
for sure.
Great.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the other thing too. The more time I spend shooting double action revolvers, it just makes me a better shooter.
Yes,
because if I can,
I've seen the same thing.
Once you start manipulating 12-pound double action triggers on end frames and controlling the recoil on some heavier stuff, shooting 9mm striker guns. I don't want to say it's easy, but it's easy. I mean,
I taught my kids.
Striker-fired guns have made us all wimpy there, Jason.
Yes,
we've gone. Well, it has. I mean, we've gone to the heavy 12-pound whatevers, and now you go to a striker-fired 3.5, 4-pound whatever they are. Our hands are now kind of a little wimpy there. It's like then you can't
hardly sell one without a comp anymore, Steve.
But I've seen that like it going down to Revolver Roundup the last few years. The guys on the line, they'll go through an iteration of some drills or whatever. They'll take a break. And it's like they'll be doing this with their trigger. It's like, man, I haven't, my hand's out of shape. I was like, yeah.
When we've had complaints when Brian and I'll do these, especially when we're doing the small classes and stuff, and the guys, you need to put out the round count and how much ammo to bring and all this. And we always tell them, bring 400 or 500 rounds. And we always get the complaint, we're not shooting remotely 400 or 500 rounds. And we go, well, the problem is if we tell you to bring 120 rounds, what kind of shooting class is that?
Yeah.
And then it's funny, we get you out here with a snub, and you're over here crying at the end of the day on how you're tired. Yeah, it's hard shooting these. It's a lot of work.
Except for the 32 shooters, Darryl. The 32 shooters, they're good all day.
All of a sudden, this is a little bit of work, and it's you've had a finger workout and a better attention span to stuff. And for me, the weird thing coming about at the age I'm at, I was never a 22 shooter. I didn't grow up with them, didn't start with them, thought they were stupid because that's for babies and children. So I wasn't a 22 guy at all. And now I am like Captain 22 revolver. When I shot that perfect snub test with that 396, what happened is I shot about 40 rounds of the 200 grain stuff, 50. Shot a few of Brian's hardcast Keith loads, and then I had just gotten a brand new Model 18 4-inch, so I ran like 50 rounds through that thing, and then I picked up the 396 to go ahead and shoot, finish out the day and go ahead and shoot that snub test to see where I'm at on it. And I'll tell you the different, that all of a sudden a perfect score appeared because my trigger press after shooting, because that 18 was so damn fun to shoot. You're shooting a target, nice target sights, 22, just banging an X out of the target. And there was zero recoil. All of a sudden, when you're not worried about recoil, you just press the trigger to the rear 10 times. It's pretty good, and a lot of guys I know now are finding that, like all you guys, man, I got into this snub thing, especially with the 32s, and my 9mm shooting has improved so much.
Facts.
Truthfully.
It's like,
I've seen it. Yeah.
yeah, we told you, it's like, yeah.
Well, I told Brian that I won one of the Ruger Wranglers at the drawing this last Revolver Fest, and I started my teenager out on that, and then moved him to double action 22, and then he shot the Python a few times, and then my Pieta, and somebody offered him a chance to shoot a Glock 43, and he went and blew out just below the X ring and set it down on the table and turned around and looked and goes, "It's a nice gun." Went back, picked up the revolver, kept shooting. And it was like, I've seen my scores improve, but I've only worked him mainly on revolvers. And when he first started, I let him try a few semi-autos to see what he'd like. That kid loves his revolvers now, but he can pick up just about anything anybody lets him try now, like that. It's because it's all the fundamentals.
One of the best things I picked up from the first Snub Summit was when Darryl and Brian and Wayne Dobbs were doing ball and dummy drills with what you can do with a revolver, you can't really do with an auto. And you get great trigger presses.
Mm-hmm.
You can take 50 rounds of ammo and have the equivalent of shooting 250 rounds of auto.
Yep.
And with the same training, especially these days when ammunition's starting to get a little tougher again and everything else. That takeaway, because you can dry fire all you want, but when you know that it could go off, it's a different trigger press than when you know it's not going to go off. I don't care what you do. And so I've seen that, and I use that with my wife. I mean, she was she got a UC 32, and I tell you, using that and just getting multiple trigger presses when it could potentially be fired. She went from shooting decently to just, B8s are in trouble now because she's got so many good trigger presses, and we do that, and that technique that Wayne and those guys used is beneficial. So anybody's listening or watching that's wanting to get in this revolver stuff, you don't need to just go bang away 6 rounds every time you load the gun. Load the gun, shoot, spin it, shoot it, and then you will get great trigger presses, and you will learn to shoot those guns very affordably and very quickly doing that.
100%.
There was a famous Patism from Pat Rogers. Practice makes permanent. Don't know if Pat came up with it, but he certainly was the primary preacher of it. And when I tell guys, I go, when you're doing dry practice at home with whatever, I go, you're not gripping the gun for recoil. You're gripping the gun so the dot doesn't move, the sights don't move, the whatever. I mean, you're pansy gripping the gun and kind of doing whatever. And then you get out on the range, and your brain, right before it goes off, goes, hey, it's going to make a noise and it's going to recoil. And then the Glock will start shooting low left when that happens. When your brain tells you to grip it at the end. And what I tell guys is, and Claude Warner is really the guy we attribute that kind of shoot and spin and shoot and, not having a full load of ammunition, is it gives you perfect practice. Your every trigger press, what you're telling your brain is overwhelmed with there's nothing in it, but you're gripping it for recoil. So you've got, because the other side of your brain's going, but it may go off. So you've got to hold it that it might recoil. But your brain's also doing math and going, well, there's only 1 or 2 rounds in there, so it most likely won't go off. So now you're getting a clean press without any recoil anticipation, whether that's, some people have a fear of the gun going off and it's a flinch. For a lot of us, it's simply imparting recoil control at the wrong time. It's not necessarily a horrible thing where your brain knows it's going to go off and we impart a little extra recoil control, and when you take all of that out, now you can do some really good work. And, again, it also makes it able that we can actually go out and practice with things like these 44s, the 41s, and we can really get good on very capable caliber guns without beating ourselves to death. I wish I knew all of this stuff before I recoiled myself into a case of horrendous arthritis. This would have been good to know when I was a snub nose 44 mag addict, but I didn't. So and we're trying to help guys out now. But yeah, these are they're a great training tool, and I just penned a thing on American Fighting Revolver on the answer is yes. We're getting all this AI generated internet arguments on Facebook now.
Yep.
I'm reading this stuff and I go, wait a minute, that was from me. I mean, that is directly stolen from my stuff. AI stole my stuff and put it in this guy's post. And I'm like, there's nobody who has enough time to create these diatribes every day. But they all look like the old, gun magazine, 9 versus 45, auto versus it's always this versus that, red dot versus irons. Everybody's pissed about whatever, and I'm sitting here going, there's a place for both, and the idea that you can be an adaptable human being, that's what we're good at, is doing what our species does. And, there's a time and a place for a red dot semi-auto. And that's really the time and the place when I really want a snub revolver backing that up if it doesn't work. By the same token, you're out in a place where there's things with teeth and claws that are not afraid of you. Maybe having something that throws a big flat thing with the word Magnum behind it and is likely to go bang if you are scared to death and don't have a grip on the gun that's worth a shit, climbing out of your sleeping bag, um, with your lanyarded, revolver. There's a time and place for all these tools, and we just need to be able to adapt those tools to the conditions we got, and not be in a versus camp, just be in a how good can we adapt as human beings to the problem we're trying to solve.
That's exactly right, Darryl. And the thing about it, the fact that you're carrying a gun, regardless if it's a 22 Magnum J frame or Roland Special, you're ahead of the curve just by being armed. I mean, let's face it, most people you are coming across in an urban scenario are clueless, living in condition white, not armed anyways. And if you used to, like I've said many times, Darryl, if you've got a 22 Magnum J frame in your pocket, you're going to do things that 22 Magnum J frames can solve. You're not going to go jump.
Yeah, they tell
you're
you
not jumping into the
stupid thing.
Yeah, so it's just I don't understand the whole it's just like speeding, I guess. If somebody's going faster, you're an idiot. If somebody's going slower than you're an asshole, kind of thing. And same thing with ammunition and guns, I guess. And hey, if it works for you, the fact that you're armed and have trained with that gun, I don't care if it's a single action revolver or if it's a 32 shot semi-auto pistol. You're going to do just fine. You read stories all the time of the grandma who grabs a 32 Smith & Wesson long revolver and defends herself properly with it in an urban scenario. I mean, that person's not reading guns and ammo. They're not, trying to read every penetration test on HST versus Gold Dot and getting into that spiraling, argument all the time. They're just using a gun to defend themselves. And the great thing about these big bore revolvers is that they do so many things beyond just personal protection. You've got other options. So if you're going to spend a lot of time, especially if you live in a more rural area, you spend a lot of time in the outdoors, being trained up on these revolvers, not a bad thing, because you probably have just as much opportunity to have a pack of wild dogs, to have some type of situation like that as anything else. So I like the ability to have a revolver that I can take and I can put a snake load in it. I can put a hard cast load. I can put a hollow point in it. I can put a wad cutter. I can do whatever I want with it. We did it. It's funny. We got a video coming out pretty soon. But we did it with the 386 Night Guard, 357 shot, 357 version. But I took a couple of Steve's 38 wad cutters, put it in the cylinder, and then I put I think it was one or two of Darryl's DB loads in there. Then I put a couple of double tap 200 grain hard cast that were clocking almost 1,200 feet per second out of that gun. And then I put one of the double tap snake loads in that gun. And I shot a group at 10 yards that you cover with your hand with all those different loads. And here's the versatility of this gun. I went from shooting a 148 grain wide cutter at 750 to a 158 to the 950 to a 200 to 1200 to a snake load. And it was all in, I didn't have to reload. I didn't have to change the magazine. I didn't do anything. All in that one gun. And that's where these revolvers, especially the bigger bore ones, really shine, in my opinion, is that versatility.
Now, that's not saying load your weapons like that.
No.
That's saying
No.
capability.
I'm not. Yeah, one hollow point, then two pillbox jackets, then a laser safety
rock
slug.
salt. Yeah,
It was for science. For science. He did it for science.
No, it was just to prove that this is how versatile these guns are, and you can do so many different things with them. Don't take that as that's how you should load a gun. Somebody will be like, "I love these guys." He's real thick.
I think the word
disclaimer.
Utility is a good thing. These are very good, versatile utility guns, and that's what a lot of people need. I'm going to make another little point here too for all the, I've been unfortunate with my little black cloud to have been involved in a lot of different incidents outside of my career where I had a pretty strong black cloud, but I was usually trying to do that on purpose. Recently I was involved in an incident. I like to say I've got the first CCW safe case with a 32 UC. But Sunday afternoon, on a major freeway here in Oklahoma and waiting 17 minutes for the cops, major incident, a lot of shit going on. You know how many people I had help me? Off-duty cops and church security volunteers, and everybody carries a gun in Oklahoma, and all the, how many people? Zero help. With hundreds of people coming by, not one bit of help. And, for all the people who are claiming all this crap they carry and all the stuff they do and training, and I'm a 3%er, and I'm a this, and I got my Punisher stickers on the back of my truck and all that crap. And the fact of the matter is, most of these people don't carry. They're not serious. We're dealing in a micro percentage of actually serious, capable people out there. There's a place for these things, for just there's something to having some good capability and easy to carry and simple is all of a sudden not such a bad thing. Is again just having something you can, and like I said, the beauty of that 396 Night Guard people are figuring out is, whether I'm going to town or I'm going to fill feeders, it doesn't matter. I'm getting on a plane. I don't know where the plane is going to land, particularly these days. I'm not worried about it being illegal anywhere. I can run the gun with non-hollow point ammunition and not feel bad about myself like I'm going to die. And they're perfectly capable if you get your brain is what the tool is. And if you can wrap your head around how to use that tool, there's something to that. And, again, these 44 mags, 41 mag, 44 special, all the things we're talking about, those things have an incredibly long history of being successfully good. And it's hard to piss down that thing from the modern experts, whether it was the old time gangster prohibition era straight up gunfighting killing machines were all carrying 1926 third model HEs was the gun of the gunfighters back then. Yeah, so Jelly Bryce and Jerry Campbell and Hamer and all these guys are all carrying these big bore things. That 1950 military, my little 21 here, Steve and I are both carrying, got these Thunder Ranch guns. All of a sudden, you're like, that round has a long history of success, and there's not much wrong with that. Somebody's newfangled thing that's in a gun magazine or Facebook or a YouTube review or somebody's on whatever podcast espousing is going to cancel that stuff out. It's not a versus. Those things all do good and they're good things to have around.
And it did that success with what we would consider very archaic ammunition at that time.
Right.
I mean, there were no hollow points back then. This was all with lead. I mean, this 45 Colt got its reputation with a 250 grain, basically almost a conical. It didn't even have that. On it.
Yeah, I think.
I mean,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and I mean, you look at all the stuff that was used during that era. I mean, it was pretty effective, and I mean, people. Yeah, I mean, look, I get it. We have good ammunition these days, and I'm not saying we should be shooting, 246 grain round those lead 44s. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I am saying is that if that's what you got in the gun, you've got something that has been a proven effective stopper in the past. It's not ideal, but it's usable. And you put some of the modern stuff like Steve's stuff in there. I mean, you got something that's very viable at this point. That does have that old school technology, but now with some modern hollow points, man, you've got a really formidable package.
I think it was Brian on a podcast last year that was, I think you guys were doing, I can't remember what it was. I was on the 45 Colt last year. And, back then, the 45 Colt and the velocity back then equals now a cowboy load of today. And a lot of people were putting Boot Hill Cemetery with that, what we'd call a cowboy load today. And obviously there's difference in medical stuff and whatever for life saving, whatever. But the point being is, it did the job and very well at doing it.
Sure. And the 4440 was even weaker than the 45 Colt.
Yeah. So these things are, we're using a bit archaic delivery systems, but we're delivering so much better now than we used to. And the fact is, I just watched some videos today of Caleb doing, turbo runs on stuff with his Red Dot 327 revolver to prove you can, it's all pretty good. The thing is, if you can get out and train with it and be competent with it, I think there's something to these guns are not hard to get competent with. If that makes sense. I mean, they're so simple. The manual of arms on them is so simple that it's pretty easy to get fairly competent with. And I don't think the revolver skills are as perishable as the semi-auto skills. And I think a combination of all that stuff's pretty good is now. And then when we start talking these, particularly like, 41 mag, 44 special, any of these rounds in some moderate loads, they're manageable to use in a system that can do a lot of things for people. So,
agreed.
Now, John, did we talk about your venture into 41 before we officially started?
Yeah, I believe we did. Yeah, that was years ago. I'd always heard about it, and then one day working at the range, somebody brought one in, and I was like, man, I've always wanted to shoot one of those because I've heard about this mythical 41 Magnum. And they said, sure, yeah, come on in, shoot it. And after that, I was always chasing it. It wasn't something you could find real easily. I wanted to use one at the time that would have fit my budget more. And that has been a chase for years, trying to find them because apparently people like the used ones a lot. So
you don't see them on the used market very often.
No, you don't. And when you do, boy, are they proud of them. So,
yeah. Well, and there's a I think a pretty statistically significant proven track record that 41 Magnums dimensionally are just better built guns than some of the 44s and 45s because there were in the realm of big bore revolvers. The 41 is pretty new. It came out in the late 60s. So
1965, same year I came out.
There you go. It was a good
That's
year,
why I
Darryl.
know that. Best year
But
ever.
you got the 45 Colt that came out in 1873. You got the 44 Special that came out in 1907. So you got, there's a lot of dimension changes. A lot of the old 44 Specials, especially with Colt, used really undersized barrels and chamber throats that were the same as the 4440. So you got a lot of variation there in those two particular bore diameters when it comes to chamber throats, bore diameter, stuff like that. 41 Magnum, it's very consistent. It's all
Yeah.
410. It's on the dot. And I've got, I don't know, 6 or 7 41 Magnums sitting on the table here. And I've got a set of pin gauges. I've pin gauged every one of them. They're all perfect. Every chamber's perfect. Every bore is perfect on those guns. The bullet diameters are consistent. And I'll argue that just being in the business for 28 years, the amount of 41 Magnum guns that come in and we sell are very limited, and there's very few models offered. So I believe that tooling stays pretty fresh as compared to all the 44s and 45s that get cranked out there.
Yeah.
So I think you get consistently better tolerance guns in the 41 Magnum. 41 Magnum, if I had to put money, and look, every gun's a law unto itself, and but if you take 141 Magnums, 144s, 145s, my money's on the 41 Magnums are going to shoot better than the other two, just because dimensionally they're usually better put together.
Consistent.
Gun to gun. Also, too, another big problem with a lot of big bore revolvers is that you get thread choke when they screw those barrels into the frames. So if the bigger the bore is compared to the barrel thickness, the thinner that is, you can get some constriction right in front of the throat there. And the 41 having a little bit more meat in there, I think it might minimize a little of your throat choke as compared to the 44s and 45s. So just dimensionally, you've got a better chance of getting a gun that's set up really, really good. And with the projectiles out there, man, you take a 41 Magnum like a 210 XTP, and you work up it's really easy to work up a good load with those. Brian Eastridge and I have been going back and forth with 41 Magnum load data here recently. We've come to find out basically that our old friend Dick Thompson, who's killed more stuff than the plague with a 41 Magnum, he's got 2 loads. He's got 8 grains of unique and 17 grains of 2400. Because you do everything with those 2 loads, and he's proven to be right again. Yesterday. I shot about 100 rounds of 17 grains of 2400 with some 210 XTPs, and it's a magical combination. It shoots. So it's hard to it's hard to not get a good accurate 41 Magnum out there. So I think it's a great choice for somebody who doesn't want to fuss around with a gun and worry about having to hone out throats and all that kind of stuff.
I'll give you a bit of analogy to that too. Is 22 mag is a lot of the same way. I tell people, I go, the reason these 22 Magnums tend to be so good with these snubs for a lot of stuff is because there's no crappy 22 Magnum ammunition out there. There's no big golden bucket of generic something at the store. There's no bucket of whatever in 22 mag versus 22 long. Most of the 22 mag is all premium hunting ammunition that's out there. The Winchester stuff will always split cases in the revolvers. But other than that, most of the stuff is really high quality ammunition. And 41 mag, I think because there's just not a ton of it out there. My experience is mirrored, Jason and Brian's with it is every 41 mag I've ever owned shoots. I mean, chambers are consistent, they're tight, everything. The gun company, and again, there's not a lot of crappy ones out there. Those tend to be premium guns from any of the companies that make them. They tend to be sort of on their premium side. So there tends not to be crappy guns. And there tends not to be, because the ammunition's not super popular. Usually what they're building when they build 41 mag ammo is premium ammunition. So that whole combination makes for, you're pretty assured if you buy a 41 mag, it's probably going to be a good gun. Whether that's a Black Hawk or a Model 57 of some variety or a Red Hawk or whatever. I mean, I fell into a 4-inch, one of those limited edition Red Hawks in 41 mag. That was one of the local game wardens in Lake Havasu scary gun. And my God, is it amazingly good shooter. I mean, it's got one of the best actions on a Ruger I've seen, and the thing just makes holes on top of holes. And again, from a, pretty much, from a round butt, 4-inch Red Hawk. And there's something to 41 where they always shoot good.
So, Jason, quick question for you.
Yep.
To the best of your knowledge, how much of this is actually in stock right now?
Probably none of it, right?
Oh.
Well, so the I'm working on getting some more of the flat tops done.
Cool.
That's been a tough one. They've been really, really popular, and so I'm trying to get more of those. The Smith and
Blue?
Yeah, we might have some
Blue?
blue and
Blue?
yeah,
Blue flat
yeah,
top?
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, working on that one. We actually might have some of the Smiths in stock. Actually, the 57s, those come in pretty regular, so those are pretty common. Working on some more 41 Magnum special runs, so you can use your imagination on what might come in there. But anyways, yeah, like I said, I'm a 41 Mag nut. That was my first large bore gun, so I've got a soft spot for 41 Magnum. So if there's a platform that makes sense for that cartridge, then I usually try to make something go there. So, and now that we got Steve making cool ammo, I mean,
well, I was just going to say, I'm sitting on a podcast with my two crack dealers.
Exactly.
Between Jason and Steve, I got the whole crack supply chain right there.
So yeah, when that time comes, there needs to be a good. Steve's got the right formula for the 41. So
yeah.
Yeah. On the other screen, I have High Desert and Lip Season just flipping through. Yeah. Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
I did.
And like we said at the beginning, like we said in the beginning, if you finish this episode and you don't get one, they didn't do their job.
You're wrong. You're wrong.
Now, I'll tell you, the other sweetheart out there is the Ruger flat top 44 specials. Those guns, we did that first run in 2009 with the standard grip frame. Let's see, like this one right here. So just a standard grip frame, flat top. These are built on the mid-size frame, so the 357 size frame. These are awesome guns, and these guns really shoot well. So Ruger did a great job building these flat tops. After that, we did the Bisley models. This one's been customized, but this is a flat top Bisley 44 special. And so this basically think of it as almost as a modern Keith number 5, which the Keith number 5 was basically the article he wrote was the final answer. I mean, this is the answer of what the perfect gun was. And this came out in like early 50s, before the 44 Magnum came out. And so these guns can handle, these Ruger mid-frame flat top 44 specials can handle that original Keith load, that 250 at 1,200 feet per second with no problem. But these guns are fantastic. Really, really good guns. And we'll have more of those coming. That's the plan. That originally, that concept started, really Skeeter Skelton was the first one to really promote this in the 44 special. And this is a custom that David Clements did for me back in the early 2000s, before we did those mid-frame flat tops. And what people would do is they would take the old Ruger 3-screw 357s, because they were built on the smaller frame, not the large frame like the new models, and then they would have them rebarreled and rechambered to 44 special. And this gun has the aluminum grip frame, so it comes in at, I think this is 35 and a half ounces. Yep. So right in that sweet spot.
Sweet spot.
Carry this gun all day. It's easy to shoot. It's got I got this gun over 20 years ago. It's got a gold bead front sight. You might see a pattern here with some of the stuff that we do. But this gun right here is really the kind of the genesis of the modern flat top large bore guns that we're seeing today, whether it's 44, 41, or 45 Colt. Skeeter Skelton really was the one who really kind of popularized that conversion. And it's still a great conversion, but now with the modern guns, you got the transfer bar, so you can load 6 instead of having to load 5 and all that. But great guns. If you're looking for a very easy shooting, that's very accurate, those Ruger flat top 44 specials are great guns to go check out. So
Are they in stock?
we do them in blue
Yeah,
and in stainless.
Are they in stock?
We're working on getting some more, Steve. Yeah,
Okay.
that
They're
we had
hard.
sold out, and they're hard to get right now. But I'm working on some more.
I
Yeah,
had one
I'm
of
looking
the.
for-
I got
I'm-
one of the
I'm looking for-
originals
Oh,
that
yeah.
like
I'm looking
Jason
for 2 of the
just
flat
showed.
tops, the 41 and the blued, and the 44 special blued. Yeah.
Just
Okay.
send me your shopping list. I've got a friends of Jason spreadsheet that I
See,
keep all my stuff
I've
on.
got 2 of my crack dealers here too. You and Darryl. You
Yeah.
got stuff you got coming out with Lipsy stuff, and then Darryl shows off his stuff on AFR and whatever else, and then the other crack person who's not here is Matt Olivier. It's like,
Oh, Matt's a peddler, man. Don't kid
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah,
Nice.
he's the I got one of those 4-inch or 4 5/8 inch flat top 44s, and I sent it off and had Tyler do the whole gun. Jason was kind enough to get me a block of wood for my birthday that I got to pick out for the stocks, and it's
Oh, yeah.
just so spectacularly good. It's not even funny. But now the one I'm waiting for is I want to get a. If I'm going to do a 5.5-inch Bisley, I want it in the 41 flat top. I think that's going to be a pretty good
You
thing. And
need
then
that with Darryl.
I just got that 4-inch Super Blackhawk from you, and the reason is the other little addiction is Ruger number ones. Is I got a number.
No,
I got, it's
stop.
another rabbit hole, but I got a Ruger number 1 and 44 mag, and I'm like, I need a companion gun that can shoot the same ammo, because that's gonna be the one I'll be probably shooting Y hammers out of almost exclusively. So I wanted a Super Blackhawk to go with it, and that's sadly that one has the longer grip frame, so it's going to Bobby to get grips fitted instead of like every set of stocks I put on it are a hair short.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Bobby
Well, hey,
said
that's a great excuse to get new Tyler gun.
yeah, well, I just had to send it to Bobby to get. Bobby's like, I'll get the grips put on so it doesn't look funny, and but it's I can't think of anything more nerdy, than a Ruger number 1 and 44 mag with a companion Tyler Super Blackhawk's going to be pretty spectacular. But
the cool thing about that 44 number 1, when I spec that gun out, I made sure that they put a 20-inch twist in that barrel, so it'll stabilize the 300 up to 320 grain bullets, no problem. So you can shoot as heavy as you want on that thing, and those guns shot really, really good. So that was a good run. That was a really good run.
I was pretty happy to score that thing, so I needed a companion for it. So it was an excuse to get on the website, the right
Ruger
thing.
number ones are a whole wormhole in and of itself. I used to work in a shop that did Ruger number ones, and oh my gosh, I fell in love with that. It's an expensive wormhole though.
To me, it's a lot like a lot of this stuff. It's really the purist's rifle.
Yep.
I mean, that is just a purist, that if, the Ruger number 1 fans, those are guys who generally can shoot. If that, it comes down to that whole genre of that, single shot thing. It's guys who can shoot. But by the same token, a lot of what we're talking about tends to be people who can shoot. The ones that are going like, I'm totally comfortable walking around with well, the other day I went out, I was filling feeders and stuff, and I knew we had a bunch of guinea hens are eating out of our feeder, which is funny. Which I'm like, okay, I'm going to go whack a coyote too. They still have not found this herd of guinea pigs or hens that are sitting under the feeder with the turkeys and the deer. And so I took the Hoods to Woods 44 mags that Brian and I did. It's a Tallow limited edition 3.75-inch Super Blackhawk, and we had RW grip frames. Ronnie Wells do some custom aluminum frames for them and fitted them up. They've been fire lapped, all the stuff. And I threw that in a Barani inside the pants holster, and I wore it I had to go to Bass Pro in the city first to get corn and then out to the feeders and do all the, and I felt like perfectly okay, carrying this, antiquated, Super Blackhawk. It's in an accessible holster. I got, Steve's ammo in there. I got, I'm like, I think we're perfectly okay right now with what I'm
You
carrying.
survived to be on the podcast, Darryl. You didn't get killed in the
here I
streets,
am,
so,
still alive,
Shocking, I know.
Yeah, the hardest thing was trying to get the guinea hens off the feeder. They're not afraid of people because they probably escaped from some farm that's out there, and they decided they're going to rough it. They're like rogue, rogue guinea hens, and but you're the chance of running into hogs or coyotes and all. My wife got charged by a coyote out there, so we don't go anywhere without a gun on us. Period. So. And yeah, that's why we call them the Hoods to Woods gun. It doesn't matter. They're fine. And I can run a single action revolver just fine. So, here we are. And they're pretty, and their nice thing about them is they're dead guns until you do something to them.
Yeah. Until you cock that hammer, it's a heavy,
heavy
paperweight.
Yeah. Talk about not caring what I'm throwing down the front of my pants. And, got one of the Brawny summer comforts and, yeah, just fine.
It's funny. We there's a gun writer that we don't know, but I don't want to call him out. But I've seen him more than once carrying a Colt single action Army stuffed in the front of his pants with the loading gate open so it doesn't fall down. And he's still alive. He's still walking around. He hasn't been killed in the streets yet. So I guess this works.
Yeah. Well, that's how all of our Forerunner heroes used to carry their guns. Is the reality of that is, all these guys that we sit there and go, oh my God, these guys who were stacking bodies back in the day, they were all carrying their guns like that. It's like they didn't have they weren't calling Barani or Simply Rugged or they didn't have their local leather crack dealer. They're sewing stuff up in a saddle shop. They didn't have a box of holsters. I talk about that like with Frank Hamer and stuff. The guys didn't have a box of holsters. They had one. That somebody kind of tooled up for them, and you carried all the time in the one sort of way. And if you didn't want to put it in your big holster rig, you open the loading gate on. How many people did old Lucky kill and shoot with Frank Hamer? And the gun was literally when it wasn't in a rig, which was most of the time, it was probably sitting there with a loading gate open down the front of his pants at 45 Colt. And, I'd put Frank's numbers up against anybody today, in an era when he could have carried a double action or a 1911 or something like that.
Well, in an era when some of the bad guys were carrying Thompsons too, so it wasn't like
Thompsons. They're carrying BA. They're carrying BA.
Yeah, they weren't just shooting single action armies either. So
yeah, they're carrying full auto squad automatic rifles. It's like.
Never thought of that until Darryl started telling those stories on some of the other podcasts, and I was like, so I'm actually okay if I carry a 6-shot revolver. And then it led to maybe I can buy a single action, and I bought that Pieta just to, all right, let's see if you can handle this on the range, and then start shooting it and be like, oh shit, I need a Ruger. And then it's like I shot somebody else's Ruger, I was like, I really need one. And now it's just the journey to find the right one. And it's funny because it'll do, because again, I'm not chasing bad guys. I'm just at most I'm going down the street to go grocery shopping, or I'm going just to run errands real quick. Hey,
I'll tell you,
ISIS ain't there. ISIS ain't there. I'll see them later this year, but ISIS ain't there.
The gateway drug to single action revolvers for people who are kind of in the same boat as you is that flat top 357 convertible 9mm.
Yes. That's
probably already got tons, stacks of 9mm ammo. It's cheap.
Yep.
It's fun to shoot. That gun is brutally strong. You can shoot any 357 Magnum load you can put in it. You can shoot 38s. That is a great way to get into single action revolvers, and a very inexpensive route that you're not having to worry about hand loading. You're not worried about trying to find 41 Magnum ammo. So anybody watching or listening that's maybe revolver, or single action revolver curious, the 357 9mm convertible is really probably the place to start. Short of going with like a Ruger Wrangler or something like that in a 22. But if you want something that's actually,
if a friend wants to go shoot it at the range and they don't have 357 and you don't want to shoot all yours, just bring your 9mm, because most of the gun guys I know, they're running 9mm.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing is, what we did a lot of testing on those flat tops with the 9mm cylinders, and they shot really pretty good. It's not just here's a way to make noise. You're not going to have good results. Right. Those 9mm cylinders actually shoot really good. You wouldn't think it would with all that freebore, but they actually shoot really, really good.
Man, so that Vaquero looks nice. That Vaquero looks nice too.
The Vaquero is really cool. Now, I will tell you this: you don't have the versatility of being able to adjust the sights, because you might be shooting anything from a 115 grain full metal jacket to a 180 grain hard cast 357, and you're going to have some disparity there. So the adjustable sights is probably the best all arounder. But the Vaquero too, man, it's such a classic gun. It just looks great.
Yeah, and then you pick up another bad habit like I have, gun spinning. Single actions will get you into the whole gun spinning thing.
I'm not gonna say I haven't tried the with an empty gun, but I don't think I'm brave enough to do it with anything in it.
Oh no, usually I got a Vaquero these days sitting there in front of the TV with snap caps in it, and
that's
it's fun. It's trying to master. Yeah, it's just trying to master another skill from a different age. It's just a thing. Yeah, I blame Andy Larson for putting that book out. It's all his fault.
Yeah, that'll reprint.
Andy reprinted the Daisy book on gun spinning, and I'm like, this is stupid. And then I'm out there, and even my wife's going, "You're getting pretty good at that," I'm like, yeah. So this is a skill old people can do. It's like, I can sit in my recliner and watch Tombstone and spin guns. It'll be good.
Yeah, my wife has asked me to stop playing with the single action and just kind of playing with it, getting good with it. And
they're hard. They're hard not to play with, which is why I'm pretty adamant on those. Always have snap caps in them.
Oh, yeah.
Brian gets mad at me every time I bring something over for him to work on. He opens it up and a whole thing of snap caps all fall out of it. I use snap caps to ensure that I'm not putting loaded stuff in the gun.
Right.
I've talked about how to set them up for training, is because it's always the unloaded ones that get you.
Yep.
And I know if those snap caps are in there, I can't put something in there.
Yeah.
So, the Vaquero that Jason, you just sent me, sitting over there right now with 44 mag snap caps in it, and I'm, cocking, doing all the, manipulations on it. It's something, again, it's something to master again. You can take your 743rd trip to the range with your compensated red dot 9mm, or maybe you can learn to shoot something else that you may have to pick up and run someday.
Right.
Again, the idea that I can pick up just about anything and shoot it is nice. I'm not limited to my gun with my grip. I love the guys, I talk about this, the guys who are like sawing off shit off their gun because it doesn't work with their grip. I'm like, how the hell do you get out of a rental car? We're human beings, figure out where the door lock is and get out, or the latch is and get out of the car. I mean, it's like, sawing shit off the gun so you don't have to change your grip is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. But, it's just me. So anytime I can pick something up and learn how to run a different system and the manipulations and stuff, I think it makes you better on everything, or certainly more adaptable to other stuff. I mean, it's simply learning how to use tools, and these are just different tools. And again, some of this stuff we're getting into is a bit of minutia, but this is where guys be sitting there going, well, shoot, if I go with the 41, I get down into a mid frame, and that gun tends to handle a little better, a little easier than the large frame guns. That's where, again, we can start specializing those tools to what we need. And, most people will probably find if they get in the single action thing that all of a sudden the mid frames are kind of their own deal.
Mid frames are a sweet spot.
I fell into a birth year 3-screw Blackhawk. And I didn't get the whole thing about 3-screw Blackhawks until I got that. And like all of a sudden I got it. I'm like, oh, this is what everybody's excited about. Okay.
Yeah.
The only problem with it is the cylinder is egg shaped. It's not round, which is probably why it was so cheap.
Yeah.
It has one cylinder that will not go off because the firing pin hits it on the side of the hits off the primer. It's that far out of round. This is what Brian's for. Brian's like having a gauge when he's all.
Well, that's the one you mark, Darryl, and that's the one you leave empty. So don't worry.
Yeah, kind of like automatic. Well, we went out. Luckily, we went out when we were at Bobby's place. He's got a couple of cylinders. We just got to mic the thing and figure it out. But it's like all of a sudden I got it. I really hadn't got it before that. I know how much I love that 44 flat top, the Lipsy's exclusive I got that Tyler did, but then I got my hands on a 3-screw and I went, oh, okay, now I know why these guys are. This is another rabbit hole right here. Yeah.
There's something about the 4 clicks that's just true. I don't know what it's just different, man. It makes the guns really cool.
I am not gonna lie. We were out there and Dusty Hooley showed me something he built for himself. And I was like, just bring that to Holiday and I'm bringing money. And I'm first in line. That's how it's going to work. It makes all the clicks. It does all the things. I'm like, okay, no, we're not even going to discuss that. That's just going to me.
Right. Well, there's a.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, man. No, I was going to say the big thing about the mid-frame guns is that they do sit lower in your hand, and so you don't get as much. I think it does help the recoil. Like that 41 mag flat top mid frame, when we were testing those guns, we were shooting 230 grain hard cast up to 1435 out of that gun. Now that's basically a 44 Magnum load, and that gun was very comfortable to shoot with that. If you'd have shot that a 240 at 13 or 1430 out of a Super Blackhawk with a regular grit frame, you wouldn't want to do it that much. It would not have been that much fun. But it's just, man, that 41 is just that magical sweet spot of power and recoil. The Bisley grip frame manages the recoil so much better than the traditional hogline style grip frames do. It allows the gun to recoil properly and behaves a little bit. And those mid-frame guns sit down lower in your hand, and they just don't have as much muzzle rise. So I don't find as much vertical impact shift with different types of recoil levels because you can get a hold of the gun better. These lightweight standard grip frame guns, I can put it in my hand, I can put it in 3 different people's hands, and we'll have a 5-inch disparity in our point of impact. It's how much we grip it, because these guns are designed to just roll straight up. And so if you grip it hard, it's going to shoot lower than if you grip it soft. The Bisleys tend to minimalize that a little bit. So if you're looking for success with the big bores, Bisley grip frame's the way to go.
And that's why I need to get one. That's all there is to it. One of the things Darryl said also about expanding your skill sets. So I picked up a Wolf Ears cowboy rig.
You went all in.
45. Oh, yeah. And
nice.
Get used to trying to draw and do the whole 9 yards with an unloaded firearm. That's a completely different skill set from anything that I'm used to. Duty rig, no problem. Level 3, no problem. Pulling from this and pulling the hammer back and being on target, that's multiple steps that my body is not used to, and it takes practice. And it's cool to figure this out.
Yeah, it's fun though, isn't it?
It is. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, and then you go watch some World Fast Draw videos.
Yeah.
Where they're doing
Bill Jordan.
They're doing that in 0.28.
Yeah.
Draw, cock it, and fire in 0.28 out of the whole. You're like, okay, you guys are all. And you've seen how easy it is to screw that process up coming out of those. I mean,
and Bill Jordan I was saying both Bill Jordan and Skeeter Skelton, both, those guys were in the heyday of fighting revolvers, and they both said that it's quicker to get a first shot hit with a single action Army than it is any of the Smith & Wesson double actions. Now, subsequent shots, they gave the advantage to the Smith & Wesson, but the first shot, they both claimed as a guy who was trained up on the single action Army could get a hit on target quicker than the double action guns. And those guys, neither one of those guys were any slouches with Smith & Wesson
No.
K&N frames. So I think that says a lot about how fast a single action can be put into action if you know how to run it.
Yeah.
Well, the guys, the Bob Mundens and Cisco's and all those guys, the only gun you can shoot that fast physically tends to be those single actions. They're working at speeds that tend to jam up other stuff. Everybody starts talking about whatever times are, all this stuff. I mean, the world fast draw guys are in an absolute insane league of their own on how much stuff and how fast they can get it out of the gun, and that's all pure mechanics of how that system works. So yeah, it's again, it's another rabbit hole, but again, it's something to keep things interesting and to research something new. And again, once you sort of mastered as a professional gun carrier, whatever it is, once you've sort of mastered your craft, it's really good to start branching out. And particularly if you hang the word instructor next to yours, you better know how to, and when I'm mentoring some of these kids, and Kegel's a good example, I tell them, if the only thing you know how to shoot and you have the word instructor next to your thing is a Glock, you're like a driving instructor that can drive a Camry and that's it. You're not until you're actually out there, it'd be like having a driving instructor that can't run a manual transmission. But I'm an instructor, so, for me, learning how to master single action autos, double action autos, LEM guns, working big guns, little guns, the manipulations, and Chuck and I teach a lot of that stuff together. When we do the little guns class together, Chuck will usually do the semis and I do the revolvers. But the manipulations on a small revolver are completely different than on a big one. Now, how many of your students, now they say they're showing up to class on a full-size rig and all the junk, and then, it's like the people who want to argue with me about the importance of being able to do attack reload, because my service gun holds 21 rounds. Okay, tell me you don't carry a Glock 43 or a Shield once in a while, that doesn't hold all of that, so expanding your horizons and learning almost as a brand new student, figuring these single actions out is kind of adds a little fun to the process.
Completely.
Another route I went down, archery. Again, just man, it's handgun shooting without recoil. I took to it pretty well because I could already accept wiggle. Of just accept the figure eight. But a lot of this stuff, get out of your box a little bit and learn some new stuff, and you'll be surprised. And while you're researching, what's really great is that's how you come across old stuff from Skeeter, from Bill Jordan, reading stuff from the era of Frank Hamer, and you start finding a lot of stuff out because you're down a rabbit hole of learning to run the equipment those guys ran. And, kind of what it takes. It's a real big help. And then understanding the ballistics of why some of these rounds fell into favor. How does that apply to what we're doing now? It's kind of an interesting process. And again, it's you can go ahead and get your 47th Pokemon for some drill you've practiced 932 times, so you can get a range Pokemon if that's your thing. Cool. Or you could learn how to run, and the time you invested in that, you could learn to run a completely different system that you may have to pick up someday. And or you may find an interest in that actually keeps you involved in this instead of burning out. You find something new to do that'll have a hobby, for Christ's sake. Make shooting enjoyable again. I'm so blessed to have been able to find 22s at 60 years old. I got so many new little cool 22s now that I never owned because they're fun to shoot. And I actually have the marksmanship skills and it doesn't hurt me to shoot them. I feel like kind of like a little kid again that I didn't get to do when I was a little kid. There's nothing wrong with this stuff. And again, for the guys who are into the comp red dot 9mm, go learn to master shooting big bore revolvers. And you may find yourself a better shooter with the other stuff and a more rounded shooter and a better understanding of some of the big concepts of this stuff, about why the world circulates the way it does, using the tools of your predecessors and ancestors.
Absolutely. Well, and my own personal path, journey, whatever, started with a DASA semi-autos, went to striker fired, AR-15s. Okay, now we're in law enforcement, normal, late 90s, early 2000s. Well, I get into AKs because I want to learn more about this other thing. Shotguns are out. No one does shotguns. Okay, well, I'm going to start learning about shotguns. Not just pumps, but semi-autos. Well, now let's jump into revolvers. Let's find out more about revolvers. And it's been so rewarding. And truly, we live in a golden age of firearms, whether it's ammunition, accessories, firearms themselves. We can do all this stuff behind me. So many different tasks that can be done. But at the same time, it's all enjoyable. And these are all things that you can work on and build skill sets. And as you said, it's cross training. And my skills with the revolver, as it increases, as I get better, well, my striker fired shooting happens to be getting better. My red dot shooting is getting better because of this stuff, because of this retro emphasis I've gone into. Going into lever guns, same thing. And just embrace firearms agnostically. And you know what? I don't have a favorite. They all are my favorite. I'm surprised I haven't gone black powder yet. That's probably going to be the next thing.
That's its own rabbit hole there.
Yeah. You know what? Just I'll tell you, the other one is like a lot of us have been doing this a long time, and watching. Brian's been spending a lot of time on the phone with Furman Garza, and they're having some sort of secret something going on. I don't know what it is.
I think there's a love triangle going on.
A little, with them.
We can talk about them.
Yeah, but watching fire lapping being done, oh my God, I mean, it opened my eyes to that's what all the FUDs talked about, was this BS. And you're watching literally Brian's, bleeding chickens and voodoo stuff and saging and smoke and, but you're sitting there watching a guy take a gun that's grouping like this down to shooting a hole, and you're like, are you kidding me right now? Using this antiquated, secret almost process that only the maesters know, and Brian is mainstreaming fire lapping again, making fire lapping great again. You're like, again, how much of a better instructor or a better subject matter expert, or of what you purport that your expertise is in, how much better are you if you at least have some familiarity with some of this stuff? You don't have to be competing in World Fast Draw or Cowboy Action or doing any of that. But you know what? Learning how to run a single action revolver is pretty rewarding.
Completely.
It's just learning something new is pretty rewarding. And, again, understanding these ballistics and what these calibers are and why they're good will make you a better to speak on subjects like, which 9mm is better, if you have some degree of education on the whole package.
The revolvers as a whole lead you down a path. I mean, went and got me both of Volume 1 and Volume 2 because I'm a big Colt guy. And reading all the classics and stuff, it's kind of if you thought you were getting good with semi-autos and you go into revolvers, it'll humble you. And then when you turn around and have to go to a range day and you're going to shoot your semi-auto, you're so much better. You see an improvement. And when you're shooting some of the older stuff, which now you can do, thanks in large part to you and Steve, coming out with a load that actually is going to treat these antiques like the Trooper Mark III and stuff well, then you start wanting to kind of work on it when you notice little things. And then as you start working on it, you start to get to know your gun a little bit better. And then you start like all the skill sets start building. And it's been a journey. I'm kind of grateful that we started doing more revolver podcasts and that, things like AFR came out, because now you're not alone trying to find out some gray-haired old man in town that maybe still works on your gun. Now you've got people that are putting out knowledge that, like fire lapping and stuff like that. So now it's not unattainable old stuff you have to see in a movie or, go on YouTube and watch an old video on. Now there's new stuff coming out. Now they're reprinting books and stuff. It's great. It's wonderful, for us propeller heads. So
Yeah, I'm going to throw something out here, kind of just an observation. So, most people know I'm pretty fanatical about my 3.5-inch model 27s, which, by the way, are better when they're rechambered in 44 special. Just saying, or 45 Colt, but it is what it is. I recently shot to 80% on the Oklahoma Cleat patrol rifle course with my 3.5-inch 27. And it's sporty. I mean, it's 2 standing, 2 kneeling in like 5 seconds at 50 yards. I mean, that's pretty sporty with a 3.5-inch revolver.
yeah.
To be doing that and all the things. And the reason I shot it twice is because a bunch of guys failed it with their ARs, so I got to shoot it twice. And I'm able to run those courses and max all these things or do real well with a 3.5-inch 27. And I'm sitting over Brian and we had the videos coming out soon. We did a special on a gun in Bobby's collection. I am trying to acquire 3.5-inch registered Magnum that was used by the FBI in the Brady shootout. In the 1930s or whatever, in the Depression era or Prohibition. The one thing that struck me is the FBI agents involved in that shootout fired 45 rounds of ammunition at the bad guys with 43 hits. When have we seen any of that, anything remotely like that lately? Yeah. Multiple suspects, some are on foot, some are in a vehicle, your typical chaotic whatever. And the agents involved with their 3.5-inch, in-frame Smiths fired. I mean, that's a lot of ammunition to make 45 shots with 43 hits. And, here we are. Yeah. And there is something to this. If you can learn to run these guns, you might learn to just shoot a little better. If they had red dot compensated stuff, it would have been 145 rounds with 8 hits, but but their splits would have been amazing.
Splits would have been awesome. Yeah,
awesome
sure.
Splits. So
27s rechambered in 44, did you? Or no, 45, you said?
I've got I've got them in both. I've got 3.5-inch end frames that have been rechambered in both 45 Colt and 45 Special or 44 Special. The one gun, if I've got to take to the grave, is that Bowen gun I've got in 44 Special.
Definitely.
And it with Steve's ammo, it just shoots a hole and it's a gold bead and all that. I mean, and it was funny as I actually carried that at work. I was carrying that for a while, and I thought this is really kind of dumb. I was going through this. Well, look at me. I'm carrying a Bowen 44 Special 27 at work. And then I really thought about that, and I go, that's probably not a good idea. But I got Chauncey Wessner right now is cutting down a 29.3 for me to 3.5 inches. Mm-hmm. That'll probably end up being my working livestock gun for reasons. I had that whole deal with a Longhorn Escape was the most terrifying thing I've ever been involved in as a like Crips and Bloods are easy for me, and Mexican. I mean, those guys were easy. Once you're staring down pissed off Longhorns, it's a whole different ball game. And recently I'm now the safety officer for the rodeo, so I'm down on the floor. I coordinate all the security and medical and stuff, and I'm down there with the bullfighters and the takeoff guys, and it's a frightening world when you get next to those bulls. All of a sudden, it's like I want the biggest damn thing I can possibly carry.
So why 27s versus a 25?
Oh,
barrel.
Because it's a taper barrel 3.5 inch. That's why. It's the most purposeful revolver ever built. I'm gonna.
So what you're saying is Lipsky's needs to do that.
It's not like Darryl. Yeah, Darryl and Jason have had this conversation 400 times. We're trying
with a shaved hammer.
Yeah. Well, I just got, like I said, Smith made 100 of these. I'm carrying the piss out of it now. I mean, it's a 27-7. It looks like a 20. I mean, it's taper barrel, beautiful bluing, Performance Center gun, pre-lock, Jimmy Ray Performance Center era. The thing is phenomenal, and it's an 8-shot. And I'm like, this is it right here. This is this is every.
Yeah.
The only thing that would have made it better is if it was a 3.5 inch, but I'll take the 4. And it puts DB loads into a hole, and I'm like, this is All of a sudden, that was I thought I was there with that 44 with this thing, and then I fall into that 8-shot, and I'm like, oh my God, this thing is so good, and it's got 8 rounds. I feel like I have firepower now or something. I can hold my own.
We might have a modern rendition of that somewhere in the works.
Yeah. Well, you and I have talked about that. So yeah, I now have the example gun to work off of.
Matt, when you get a chance, you need to look up the Smith & Wesson Model 26.
Okay.
So the Model 26 was a very small run of in-frame 45 Colts with 5-inch tapered barrels.
Okay.
Sexiest gun Smith & Wesson ever made. Super cool. So basically think of a pre-27 5-inch 357, but 45 Colt. I don't know how you get any better than that, but
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either. So that's one that I would love to bring back maybe one day. You never know.
Yep.
Yeah, 3.5. Shaved hammer. There's something about that. It's a purposeful.
You look at most of my Smith & Wesson revolvers; they're either 3 or 5-inch guns. It's like 3s and 5s are the where it's at.
Yeah, in the end frame, I like to tell people with an end frame Smith, the 3.5 inch is the most purposeful looking gun they've ever built, and then the 5 inch is the classiest. Yeah, the 5-inch guns, 5-inch end frames are just classy looking.
Yeah, I just had this. I got a hold of 544 for like half the going cost, and what Steve Tracy on Revolver Guy did an article several months ago where he tried to have it swapped over to a dual caliber 4440 and 44 special, but he used a 44 Magnum cylinder. And
what do you got, Jason?
They ended up shaving the barrel down. Anyways, so I have got my 544 here that
everybody's getting out the big ones.
Yeah, I used a 41 Magnum cylinder, and they bored it out to 44 special, so the throats were good on it. And now I got a 5-inch 44 special.
There you go.
With, of course,
bear hugs. Keeping with the theme of tonight, this is a custom 5-inch 41 Magnum. This is a 57. So this one started life as a 8 3/8 inch gun that Bobby Tyler cut down. He put a Freedom Arms front sight base on the front, so now I can have interchangeable front sights. We did a kind of a matte blue. This is a set of blue Magnum grips Ted Adalmovich made for John Taffin. And one of my visits with John, John had a big wall like shelf thing full of all his drawers, And he's like, yeah, go look through those drawers if you want to look at some stuff. I'm like, say, every drawer he opened up, there would be, I don't know, 5 or 6 sets of custom stocks. And like, there's like 30 drawers in this thing. And so we got to looking at these, and I was admiring these, and said, "Oh, you need to take those home and put them on a cool gun." So I did, and this is an absolute tack driver. This gun shoots that 210 grain XTP load with 17 grains of 2400 at about 1200 feet per second. Absolute sweet spot in this gun. You shoot this gun all day long, and it shoots like a laser. And this would be a candidate if you could only have one large bore revolver. For me, this would be really high on the list.
Yep.
Great stuff. Well, we are currently at 2 hours and 40 minutes.
That sounds like enough.
Yeah. Hey, almost 3 hours of talking about 41 Magnums and 44 Specials is pretty good.
I think we did fine.
No complaints here. So if you have one of these revolvers that might have a barrel that might be longer than what you want to have, what is the going rate to have them chopped down, roughly? Time-wise and money-wise?
It really depends. It depends if you're using somebody local, or if you're going to one of the bigger custom guys. A lot of those, the bigger name guys, there's not many left anymore. A lot of them are retiring or not, right. Their books are closed. Chopping a barrel and remounting a front sight is not a real huge expensive proposition. Don't quote me on price, but I would think probably a couple $100. Part of the problem, though, is that you got to make sure your lettering spacing is correct. Because like if you take a 6-inch barrel Smith and cut it to 5 or 4, the lettering is going to be off. So probably the best thing to cut is going to be an 8 3/8-inch gun, because the lettering is far enough back to where it works good with like a 5-inch. But you can play around with that and see. Some people don't care about that, but if you're kind of OCD about the spacing, you might want to start with a little bit longer barrel than trying to cut like a 6 to a 4. That generally doesn't work too well. You might be better off, Matt, honestly, trying to just source a shorter barrel. They're out there. And when it's all said and done, you might be better just to have that barrel taken off and screw a shorter barrel on it. Everything will be correct. Then you can set your cylinder gap the way you want it. You don't have to remount the front sight and do all that business. So that might be a better, cheaper way to do it. And you still got your old barrel. You can always go back to it if you decide you want to do that.
Yeah.
You can sometimes find barrels even on eBay. I got a 4-inch for my Model 27 for I didn't know the Night Guard was coming out, so I was going to build my version on an old 27 that I got from somebody that didn't want it anymore. I'm the revolver guy around here, so they brought it to me, offload it. But I think I picked up a barrel for $65, and it was still wrapped in like wax paper.
Yeah.
So that's an option for people who are out there doing that. Of course, you got people like Dave Lauber and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That are fantastic at it.
Yeah.
So
good stuff. Well, we lost Darryl, but I see on Facebook he's messaging and then he's going away and he's messaging. Yeah, I guess now is a good time. I guess if he decides to come back, we can call on him last. But let's get those final thoughts, plugs. I'm going to say my favorite thing. Okay, yeah, he is. He's having an issue. He won't be able to come back. Make sure, if you appreciated the concepts that have been shared with you, make sure you are supporting those sources that you have found to be beneficial. If there are insights that are being shared that help you, make sure you're sharing them. That goes with primary and secondary stuff. If you like the primary and secondary stuff, we do have network support options where you can help. With that in mind, Patreon or directly on the forum, patreon.com/primary and secondary. But most importantly, make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing, support those sources. And it doesn't have to be just primary and secondary, but we have a lot of really good people on a regular basis that share some wonderful insights. Tonight's episode, the discussion was just wonderful. Love talking about this stuff. It's nice for me to sit back and learn and plan out, okay, these are going to be my next purchases. Yeah. But yeah, let's get, we just lost Steve. We'll plug Steve though. But as far as Darryl, American Fighting Revolver. He does all kinds of stuff, industry stuff.
Yes.
Man's a encyclopedia. He is a national treasure when it comes to law enforcement stuff, revolver stuff. Wonderful guy, great concepts, great.
If you're remotely interested in revolvers and you're not subscribed to American Fighting Revolver, you are totally missing out. That's the only way I think I can tell you is that if you own one, think you want to own one, you need to be there. You won't find a better resource of vetted information. They're passing along this institutional knowledge that's dying off every day, and it's there, and it's the cheapest. It's cheaper than a subscription to a magazine, and it's 10 times better. So do yourself a favor and go there. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, and additional reinforcement for he and Gary. No, not Gary. You guys are wearing Gary shirts.
I know. I noticed that, man. I got the RNG shirts.
But Brian, a lot of gun industry, including maybe even Lipsy's, they're going to these guys to say, give us some pointers. So that's pretty dang cool. That shows you how relevant their input really is.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's they're great at telling you, hey, you know what? We've tried this. This works. This doesn't work. Maybe you should tweak this, tweak that. It's some of the little details, and they're a great resource. Any manufacturers out there that are looking for some institutional knowledge on revolvers and some product consultations with, AFR guys are top notch.
Absolutely. So, final thoughts, plugs, Jason?
Yeah. So, final thoughts. I mean, man, dive in if you're interested. This is, Matt, you said it great. This is kind of the golden era. We've never been in a place where we've had this amount of stuff available, ammunition. Now you've got boutique companies like High Desert that's making ammo that's oddball, that's making it that's shootable. You're not having to spend $100 for a box of 41 Magnum that's got dust on it this thick at the bottom of the shelf anymore. Take advantage of it. People, I get, being in the gun business, I hear all the time, oh, these things are so expensive. Now I don't know why they're so expensive. If you go and look at the inflation adjusters and you put in what the MSRP of a revolver was in 1980 versus today, it's cheaper today than it was then. It doesn't seem like it, but it is. And they're actually, not only are they for what you get affordable, but they're available. And that might not always be the case, and it's not because of a disinterest in revolvers. It's because it's harder for these manufacturers to produce them. The labor that it takes to make a double action or single action revolver is completely different than what it takes to make a polymer striker fired pistol or an AR-15. And these manufacturers are trying to get tooling and machinery now to modernize and make better tolerances, but the blueprints, a lot of these guns have to be adapted to that. And back when I first started in the late 90s in the gun business, when I'd go to Smith & Wesson or Colt or Ruger, you would see lines and lines of Bridgeport milling machines and lathes and all kind of stuff, and tons of guys out there working those. And now it's all CNC, just blocks of CNC machines. You don't all that old stuff's mothballed. And so now they're having to try to adapt that new machinery to these old guns, and it's not as easy as it sounds. And so that's why you see a little, people are like, well, I don't know why they don't just.
Oh, you just went your audio
wise
just,
because
at least for me, your audio just went out.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah. Let me take. I think these might have died. Is that better?
Yeah. We can at least hear you. Oh, and he died. That's how it works here.
I guess it's a me.
Maybe he'll come back. Maybe. Okay, John, final thoughts, quick.
I lost
not quick. Am I here? How about can you hear me now? Oh.
Let's see if this works. Are we good now?
I think the duration of the episode is just long enough to kill your earbuds.
I think so. Can you hear me now, though? Are we good?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, long story short, these manufacturers are trying. They're trying to get it together and are trying to keep these legacy type products going, and working hard with them. We're trying to keep some of this old stuff relevant again, and it's really done well. The mountain gun series that we came out with has still been a really, really successful product, and I think people still long for guns that kind of have that old appeal. Lipsy's, if you're not familiar with us, we're a wholesale gun distributor, so we supply guns to about 20,000 different FFLs across the country. I'm sorry.
Oh, now I think. Are you echoing? I think John's echoing.
Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're good.
So
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, so we do about 20,000 different FFLs across the country. So you can go to lipsys.com and see what we have to offer. Kind of our little niche in the market is doing these special editions, and that's what I do. I work with the manufacturers to produce these special exclusive guns that we sell through Lipsys. And so I work with a lot of product managers and come up with specs for different things, and fortunately they're real receptive to it. It's been a win for both of the manufacturers and for us, and hopefully it's a win for the consumers. Hopefully they appreciate it. But anyways, so you go to lipsys.com. You can go to our dealer finder there to find a dealer that's set up with us and your area. And if they're set up on that dealer finder, that means they're ready to order. They can order. You can also go to our exclusive section and see all of our exclusive offerings and see what's on there. And a little kind of a little hint, because a lot of people are like, do you have it in stock? Is it still being made? Do you have it on order? If it's listed on our website under the exclusive section, that doesn't necessarily mean I have it in stock, but it means that I have it on order. So if it's on that website, that means that we've got orders in with the manufacturer. Now I might not be able to tell you exactly when I'm going to get it, because these manufacturers, they have to sometimes throw these in the production schedule when the catalog guns are slacked or whatever, when they got holes to fill. And that's a moving target. So, and a lot of times, especially with our stuff, if we have third-party vendors that are also involved, whether it's with grips or sights or something like that, we have to also depend on what their schedule is. And so making all these things work sometimes is kind of a dance in its own right. But that's how we do it. And so if you have a question about that, you can email us at info@lipsys.com. I get those emails come to me that are product questions or stuff like that. So if you're, hey man, I want to know, is this gun going to come in the next 6 months, whatever? Email that. I'll do the best I can to give you an ETA on when you might be able to see it, and we can try to help you get connected with the dealer if you're having problems with that. Follow us on our social medias. We have Lipsy's Guns on Facebook and Instagram. Our YouTube channel. We try to put anything that's a relevant, cool, exclusive. We try to do reviews and talk about what we're doing there. So that's a good place to keep up with what we're doing. We've got some more revolver stuff coming out this year. I know some people were like, "Oh man, you didn't introduce this at SHOT Show. I'm disappointed." It's like, as a general rule, I don't like to announce it at SHOT Show if I'm beyond 60 days of receiving it after SHOT Show. So just because we didn't launch something at SHOT Show, that doesn't mean that it's not coming this year. So we'll have product launches throughout the year with some different revolvers and some Ruger number ones, stuff like that, Ruger 77s, stuff that we kind of like. So
Ruger number ones and 44.
Yeah, exactly. So to just keep in touch there. And again, if you got any questions, or if you got any suggestions, you're like, hey man, you guys really should look at making this or that, shoot an email at info@lipsys.com, and I'll look at all those and take them into consideration. I mean, basically my job is to sit around and come up with this stuff. So I've got a book that I kind of have a gajillion ideas on, but if you get enough people to say we should do something, it might make something move up the list. So, anyways, that's kind of what we do. And Matt, I appreciate what you do. You're a great asset to the industry. You're great at getting long form information out there. I think we live such in a world of quick 30-second snippets that are
7
shock
seconds.
value type stuff, clickbait. This is such a refreshing venue for people to get on here and be able to actually have a long form discussion and really get into the weeds of it.
And they're real.
So, I mean, it's unedited. This is just what it is. It's people talking about it. If you're remotely interested in the gun industry, you should be following these these modcasts, because you're going to get tidbits of information that you'll never get in a produced video or anything else, because you're having a conversation. This is literally you're getting to sit around and be that fly on the wall around the campfire, so to say,
at
so
the dinner table at an event.
So I really do appreciate what you're doing with this, and anything we can do to help you with that, let us know. And we can. It's a great deal, and I really do appreciate you having us on.
Oh, absolutely. Well, the cool thing about Lipsies and what you specifically do is you're providing those solutions that people actually want, versus, and not saying that these manufacturers aren't doing great stuff. Yeah, they are, but we can do things better. And that's where you've come in and done that. And so you've introduced these things and went, oh, that's exactly what I was looking for.
Well, and the thing is, look, I grew up shooting these guns. This has been my passion from the beginning. And look, you go walk in my vault in there, and there's tons of polymer guns and tons of AR-15s and all the other stuff. But that's not what I stick up at night and thinking about. Those are just tools. But these are guns that really speak to me, and I know it speaks to a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of these manufacturers, they're people that are in product management stuff. Not all of them are super hardcore gun people, and not all of them are gun people. Yeah, and it shows. And quite honestly, look, I'm 51 now. The guys who are coming up and now are these engineers, they're younger guys than me. And so they're not exposed to it. And so it's funny though, a lot of these guys who really aren't into it, after we talk and we go have meetings, and they kind of get into it all of a sudden. Like, man, I didn't realize how cool this was. And it's funny how many of those guys are now carrying 32 H&R Magnum revolvers and stuff, so it's neat to have a little influence there. But the manufacturers we work with are really good to work with. They it would be very easy for them to say no, because sometimes we ask for a lot, and but they see the value in it, and they're really trying hard to get these type of guns out there. And as far as like all the UCs and the mountain guns and the night guards, I got to tell people, as long as there's demand, as long as their manufacturer's willing to build them, we're going to keep ordering them. There's not a limited type thing. So, and we'll just keep expanding on those guns and offer more variants, and hopefully be able to satisfy everybody's little niche that they want. So.
Absolutely. So I got a question for you regarding the night guard. I remember it being released initially, I guess.
Well, yeah, back in like 2008 originally.
Yeah,
when it came out.
Yeah. And seeing them on Gun Broker and going, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
you gotta remember that when that gun came out in 2008, what happened? We had the election, Obama got in, and so the focus on a small carry, a lightweight carry revolver was just not in the cards at that point. It was this great product, terrible timing, and so they only stayed on the market for a few years, and they just kind of faded away.
Yeah.
And because that was just the peak of the polymer striker fired and AR craze. We were only 4 years out from the assault rifles ban ending, so we haven't even really saturated that market yet with the pin-up demand of high capacity firearms. So revolvers just weren't very interesting.
Yeah.
Now we're in a world where they are interesting again, and we were able to tweak them a little bit and change some of the stuff that maybe we wouldn't have done them that way when they did them originally. And so far, their response has been really good. We've got other variants coming, some cool configurations that I know. There's one in particular, Matt, I'll tell you offline about. I think you're really, really gonna like. So
cool.
But anyways, yeah, I'm excited about it. It's fun. It's cool to see younger guys get excited about guns that they maybe not would have got excited about. So
yeah, and that's it. Really feels like revolvers have been a big part of that. Where 5 years ago this would have been, that's just dumb, and now people are going, there might be something to that. And with enough, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, with enough influencers saying, you know what, you can actually, your performance with the striker fired is going to actually improve when you do dry fire, when you do live fire with these double action presses. And whether it's I have right here, guess we have to make sure it's unloaded, but CZP-09 double single, that has a double action press, but something about the revolver, something about being able to stage rounds, or not even just have it loaded in different ways that you can't do with a DASA.
Correct.
And there are so many benefits to a revolver.
There's a ton of benefits. And look, even if you have no interest in these large frame revolvers and Magnum calibers, even if you're thinking of the modern-most aspect of the gun world, small frame pocket revolvers still have a very valid place.
Yeah.
We've seen it 100 times where small pocket autos come out of pockets and they shoot that first shot, but after that, maybe not. So those, to me, that world is still very, very valid, and that's why we wanted to do the UC project first, because we knew that was going to be the one that would have the most widespread appeal. But I think what that did, that 32 deal especially, got a lot of people on board with saying, okay, now this is a viable platform for me to carry either as a backup or that go to the grocery store type gun, that maybe that little LCP or bodyguard or whatever else is, maybe I'm not feeling it there anymore. A lot of those people have now since said, you know what, that night guard's actually kind of interesting too, or that mountain gun or that GP100 or whatever. And so I do think that the UC kind of opened up the eyes of a lot of people who were maybe had not even really considered revolvers. And so, but yeah, it's fun, man. It's always fun to see people find a passion that you had and see value in it. And look, if you're going to handgun hunt, man, this is 41 Magnum. That's where it's at.
Yeah. Good stuff.
So,
John.
Well, I don't have a company to plug, but I will definitely say, to echo Jason, you should be following American Fighting Revolver. It's been a wonderful resource. When they did Snubfest, they brought it to my home state of South Carolina. Was thrilled to see something like that happen. Was even more thrilled when it became Revolver Fest a year later, and it was well over 100 people. And it's getting even bigger. Sadly, I'll be deployed this year, so I won't get to go. But I highly encourage folks who are curious about this, who maybe own a revolver, want to get better with the revolver, definitely go to Revolver Fest. Come visit the great state of South Carolina. But it's a lot of wonderful instructors. We had Greg Ellifritz, Mike Wood, Wayne Dobbs. Obviously DB and Brian and you even had Justin Dial, like great course. And, there was the first year, there was a few young cats there, close to my age. Last year, a lot more younger folks. It's really taken off. And these aren't old tools that are just, range toys anymore. They're really coming back in a big way. With them having a demo day where you could go out and see different stuff with Lipsies being out there and stuff like that. Coming out and seeing stuff like that was amazing. I highly encourage people to take a look at that. Go to revolverguy.com. Even more information. There's tons of it. And obviously there's plenty of modcasts that have been done here on primary and secondary. Check that out. It's been wonderful. And it's an amazing community. You got a lot of older guys happy to pass down the wisdom. On the firing line, you meet a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, and it's a very welcoming community. I have to say, I stepped back from the firearms community for a little while, leaving sales and service. I was just tired of it. Revolver sucked me right back in, and it's amazing. Highly encourage people to look at that, whether it's big bore revolvers or just small pocket carry revolvers. Come check it out. It's fun. So check out those resources and you'll definitely enjoy it. And I appreciate being here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because the timing of what your comment was about wanting to have this project, I thought, why don't you jump on?
Oh yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. And one of the cool things with revolvers also is we have the modern stuff, and then we have the older stuff, which there's not only financial value, but there is there's value out of all of this.
Even the modern old stuff like the Python coming back
Yeah.
out, that was beautiful. You know, if they could do a 41 in a Python, that was a legend. You know, that's a myth on the internet. If they could do something like that, but they
made one or two of them.
Yeah, one or two of them. If only they could make more.
Only Lipsies.
Yeah, if there was a guy, if we knew a guy,
if there was a guy,
yeah, that would be amazing. But I'm happy to see him coming out with the Blue Anaconda. So I might be going down that 44 path pretty soon. So,
but yeah, with the older stuff, the classics.
Oh yeah,
cool. And there's value for you.
RNG.
So yeah.
Great. Well, and the good thing about that, Matt, is that there's tons of them out there. I mean, it's not. Look, there's not. You know, you get some of these really, really limited hard ones. They're hard to find, but a good quality 50s era Smith & Wesson, you can go on Gunbroker right now. You can go to RNG.
100,000.
You can go to Play, and you can find pretty much what you want. So they're there. So it's available, and I'm telling you though, they are addicting. So you get that first one, man. You're gonna be you'll be looking at selling some old ARs you got sitting
around.
Yeah.
Well,
thanks, Rob Garrett.
Yeah. I don't remember who I was talking to. We were talking about Model 12s, and I have two of them, and that's one of them right there, blued. And I was thinking, you know what? I really want to shave the hammer. No, I don't. No, it needs to stay like that because it's a classic. And yeah, so I just need to get another.
Yeah, Dave Simmerly's another one that'll lead you down a wild path.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
It's definitely some degeneration going on for sure.
Yeah. It's absolutely wonderful. So to reinforce what John just said, let's see here. There it is. So not that it's an official sponsor, but RNG Firearms. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Give them a look.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And related to the Y of AFR. It's Brian's
Gary's the most interesting man alive, so don't.
But yeah, excellent episode, excellent discussion. Thanks, guys, for joining. Thank you to you, the listener, the viewer. Big thank you to High Desert Cartridge again for all my revolver ammo. That's it for me. I that's what I buy. That's what I stockpile. My semi-auto stuff, I got cases of 9. I have cases of 5.56. There are some specialty things though that he does produce that I'm thinking I want to try this out. But he also has 6.5, his 4570, a bunch of stuff. I have some of his 3030 that runs really nicely as well. Decently, it's well priced. It's mostly available, and as DB pointed out, it might become less available because of popularity. And it functions. It works well. It works really well out of my guns. So here's my 327 Performance Center. It's a 357, but it's loaded with wad cutters from High Desert because this is my go-to option.
And they are amazing to shoot.
They are.
Oh yeah.
And it's fantastic. And as far as the pricing is concerned, for my snubbies, I'm just buying wad cutters. I don't even buy a full metal or a total metal jacket. It's just the wad cutters, and that's my practice and that's my carry. And to hand it over to someone to shoot for the first time, it's a good experience. So yeah,
I've gotten quite a few people addicted to his 357 just by handing it because they're all scared, like whoa, just try this, and they'll shoot it, whether it's in the Python, the single action, or any of my other guns, and it's great.
And the fact that he offers a how did DB, what did he call it? Was it utilitarian?
Yeah. That's the total metal jacket. And then there's the field load.
And then they're essentially doing kind of the same thing ballistically, or at least trajectorily, if that's a word. That's just awesome.
We'll make it a word.
Yeah, we'll make it a word. But yeah, I got multiple boxes just sitting around me because it's great stuff. Also, big thank you to the Patreon subscribers. See, there you go, right there. And the boxes of 250. How nice is that? Yeah. But yeah, big thank you to the Patreon subscribers. If you like what we do, make sure you hit like. It's already been 3 hours. Hit share if this was beneficial to you. Look us up on primarysecondary.com. Got a forum there. I write articles on occasion. Mostly it's old man ranting and yelling at clouds. Love doing this stuff. It's a blast. Love doing these episodes. Love having these discussions. Not sure what's coming up next for episodes, but yeah, I took a bit of a break, and I'm hoping to go back into full swing. Have just such great people to call upon and to help discuss some cool things like today. Who would have thought 41 Magnum, 44 Magnum, and the specials? I wouldn't have predicted it. But yeah, awesome. Love to share this stuff. So that is all. I will kill the feed now, and this will probably be available. I don't know if anyone's even watching live right now, but it will be available. So that is all. I will talk to you later.